Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of One Arm Twinkie, Oaty Box of Chocolates. I'm Oaty, your host, and let's just get right into it. So, here on Oaty Box of Chocolates, we discuss all kinds of things about life and living and family and you name it, it's going to be covered here. That's why it's called Oaty Box of Chocolates. So, it's a box of chocolates because if you ever seen Forrest Gump, you never know what you're going to get. We cover all kinds of topics. New to YouTube, just getting started here, but in general, we're building a brand. Our brand is One Arm Twinkie. It's about a bull riding Twinkie. I don't know why or how we came up with that name. It just came out as a joke. One day we were trying to think of something that nobody would know, or that would be available in the email, the website, the channels. And so basically I thought, well, if there was a Twinkie riding a bull, surely nobody ever thought of that. And sure enough, it wasn't. Actually, first I thought, how about Iron Twinkie? And then it was taken. So weird people in the world. But no, One Arm Twinkie was available, and so we went with our mascot, because when you cap on right quick. When you ride the bull, you're one-handed. Right on. So here it is, Oaty. Oh, I didn't even have the costume on. So this is probably the first time you'll ever see me not in some kind of Oaty garb. We do have the banner in the back, which lighting's bad. My OCD is just really going crazy right now because, well, I'm here by myself in the studio. Just started recording and playing to see how things were going because I figured, I watched a video of a guy who said, start making YouTube channel, blah, blah, you got to punch procrastination in the face. You're going to have to punch perfection in the face. And so both of those kind of went out the window. And right now, I have this line down the center of my table that doesn't line up with the, see, I'm looking at the cameras backwards, A. It doesn't line up with the A. My head's not lined up with the camera. And so I feel like I'm just staring off into space. But I want you guys to think that I'm looking at you. I'm grab a drink of my drink. It's actually Dr. Pepper. Mixed with Diet Cherry Coke. And so the reason why I got 2 days, and one of our channels will be starting, actually filming tomorrow, the introductory video for it, and it is Oaty Weight Loss. So we have a lot of channels. I'm going to go over them all in this video. We have like 10 channels we're going to be starting, but in order to have an actual channel and link it, my understanding is, and I'm brand new to YouTube, I've watched it for years, but I never looked at the mechanics of it. You need to have at least one follower and one video in order to call it a channel. So we have tons of content. We just are barely going to begin recording. I wanted to put everything together before we start recording. That way we never disappoint. So our goal is to never disappoint, always entertain. So pretty soon, like the day after tomorrow, I got about 36 hours and my fat self will be on a diet. I'm not fat shaming, not at all. If people are fat, you're fat. And if you're skinny, you're skinny. And just call it what it is. But in the words of David Goggins, which, by the way, one of our channels I'll talk about in just a minute, is Oaty Book Reviews. I'll be reviewing books. I am a book nerd. And I don't have that hat handy. I guess I could grab it and throw it on. Anyways, I'll talk about the different channels in a minute. But David Goggins was, I guess, once a Navy SEAL, always a Navy SEAL. I have a lot of respect for super soldier type of people and the disciplines that they exhibit in their lives. And David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL. No, I think once a Navy SEAL, always a Navy SEAL. Once a Marine, always a Marine. So he wrote a book, and it is called You Can't Hurt Me. It's a really good book. You should check out the book. Like, go check out don't go right now and check out the book. Finish watching the video. We need the views. But when you're done, in fact, just check out our channel. It'll be up soon. Probably going to be the channel where I post the least, because I have about 50 books that I'd like to review right now that are on the list. Basically, they're just books that I've read. And so, yeah, in the book, getting back on topic of me being fat, David Goggins says, if you're freaking fat, just say you're freaking fat. Don't beat around the bush about it. So, that said, I weigh more than I used to. That's actually due to another channel that we were going to make called Oaty Cessation. Oaty quit smoking. Oaty stopped smoking. So what I decided to do was, because there's only going to be like 8 videos, 8-10 minute videos, I decided to make one long video and break it up into segments so anyone can watch the long version of the quit smoking video, or you can watch the segments. And so that, along with about 3 other channels that we started out with, I think I'll go over them in a minute, but that was absorbed by Oaty Box of Chocolates. I figured that it would benefit the channel more to put Oaty Cessation in with Oaty Box of Chocolates and then just form a playlist. Another thing I just learned about on the YouTube channel. So I'm not alone. I have helpers. He's not here now, but Dakota, call him D. D is my right-hand man. He is a business partner. He's a friend. He's a family member. And we don't have a lot in common, but then again we do. So there's a lot of dynamics to the relationship with me and D so far has been handling a lot of stuff. And the other one is Zane. I don't know, Zane, if you want to squeeze in some kind of a image of yourself right here, but Zane is my Belizean brother. He is my best friend, and he lives in right near Belize City, Belize. And so me and Zane have been friends for a little while now, and he does our editing and stuff. We almost hired a virtual assistant today because I'm afraid that we may be having too much video editing to go on pretty soon. But for now, brother, it's all on you. And actually, it's not all on him, but he's going to be doing a good portion of what you're going to see on our channels will be either done or directed by him, and possibly him working with a virtual assistant, hopefully in the future. Almost today we hired one, but we decided we're just going to hold off a little bit, and because you people just might not like me, and there may be no market for our channels. Speaking of which, let's just get right into it. I am going to be making a lot of YouTube channels, and so about 10 altogether, trying to pick topics that make people happy. The biggest and probably the most posted on one in the beginning will be Oaty Box of Chocolates, because I can put pretty much everything here, and there's no theme to this channel. The theme is whatever topics come up, that comes up. And so we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff. I hope you viewers enjoy it. I am here for your entertainment and for your pleasure. I'm here to make stuff that you like, and I hope the things that I'm able to do, that I have some kind of interest in, that won't be boring for me to make, I'm hoping that they will also be good for you. So Oaty is actually a bull riding Twinkie, and so that's what's up with the Western theme. By the way, we live in the Southwest. We live down here in New Mexico, and so we're like at the northern tip of the Chihuahuan Desert. It's dry. It's desert here, and so the West is kind of a thing we do. Ain't nothing to see a guy with a collar shirt and a cowboy hat on. Mostly I don't wear those, but for your entertainment, I have a costume for every channel. So let's get right into the channel. But I can see right now that I'm doing bad things with the lighting since I switched hats, because we're trying to sort out the lighting as well. And since Dakota's not here, I tweaked with the camera and I tweaked with the lighting. I should just stick to drilling wells, maybe. Work in the oil fields, what I've done until COVID came along and messed up a whole lot of things. And so we had business go under. We had just all kinds of things. And so I decided to try my hand at something else. I am not getting any younger, and so I hope we can entertain you guys. I'm going to switch over. There. Now the light is not. Now you can see my face. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe you don't want to see my face. I don't know. It seems like I've got some bad lighting issues. I don't know. Either way, we'll play with it later. And the camera's backwards, so what I'm seeing is the opposite of what you would think that I would be seeing, and kind of a mirror type of view. But so the channels, what I'm making to entertain people, I have here a list of channels. You see these? These are props for costumes. One of these is going to be cut in half and painted. It will be a Hannibal Lecter mask, and the other one is, of course, if you're a horror fan, Jason Voorhees, I believe his name is. So there's Jason Voorhees. And so we have, first and foremost, the video that I will be starting on Monday, the training for. We will put out about 60-ish, between 30 and 60 videos. Decide if I do an AM video and a PM video for, you guessed it, Oaty weight loss. I am going to, because I'm a book nerd, I read lots of books. Timothy Ferriss being one of my favorite authors, he wrote a book called, first ever book I read was The 4-Hour Workweek. Now, he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Body. And then there's The 4-Hour Chef, Tribe of Mentors, Tools for Titans, and I think he has a new one out, I'm not for sure. But Timothy Ferriss, he's a great author. And so this isn't Oaty book reviews, but this is definitely Oaty Box of Chocolates, so we can talk about book reviews here if we want to. But channel number 1 is going to have, actually Oaty Weight Loss is not going to be a channel. It's being absorbed by Oaty Box of Chocolates. So there's going to be a playlist on Oaty Box of Chocolates. And so tomorrow I'll be making a video probably between 1 and 2 hours talking about how I got fat and the insecurities that I have. If you want to call them insecurities about my body, I just know something needs to be changed. So I'm not really insecure because I don't really care too much about what people think of me. I mean, there's things we can change in the way things are. But no, I definitely want to put on my best face and put my best foot forward for you guys. But the truth is, I think for me, I need to change. If someone's out there, I am not fat shaming anyone that's overweight. In fact, if you're interested in losing weight, I hope 100% to be able to help you by having success with it's called the slow carb diet. It's in one of Timothy Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Body, and it discusses, by the way, a disclaimer, there's a portion of that book where it goes from PG, kind of a nerdy PG, to other functions of the body. So note to self, if you buy that book, it was a shock to me. I was just getting started. My daughter was like, hey Dad, it's like, yeah, you should read this book. It's a really good book, until I got to a certain chapter and I was like, stop, don't. Anyways, yeah, it discusses adult life after a while. And it's really good stuff. It's just not for kids. In the book, The 4-Hour Body, Timothy Ferriss talks about a diet. It's called the slow carb diet. Basically, it's a really simple diet. We'll talk about it when we get to it in the video for the playlist. I don't want to waste all that time talking just about Oaty weight loss. But the one-arm Twinkie has got shed a few pounds. My wife told me the other morning, and she's honest. We're an honest pair. She said, "You look like you're pregnant with twins and you're about to pop." And I was like, well, if you would like a better view of that, I'm going to go over it tomorrow. In tomorrow's video, you're going to get to see the brutal reality of just how bad it is. I'm going to bear it all. Well, I'm not going to bear it all. I'm putting on shorts, and that's it. Let me tell you, you're going to need sunglasses because the future's so bright. And maybe a barf bag. There's nothing pretty about bloat. It's all bad. But the only thing wrong with being in a bad situation is not changing it. So it is what it is. So on Oaty weight loss, why am I so fat? And I only mostly carry my fat around my midsection, not on my thighs, not on my things. So when I was young, I have always been in pretty much really good shape. I've worked in the oil field. There's very little in the oil field that I haven't done over my lifetime. I've drilled, fracked, treated, service. It doesn't matter. Exploration, production. It's just what we do here when you don't go and listen to your dad and get a degree and go to college. And if you go to college and get a degree in the oil field, you come out and make a really nice living, but you won't have a life. These companies don't care about people. For the most part, they don't. There are a few exceptions, but can't think of any right now. So, yeah, it's a very busy place working in the oil field if you're not a truck driver. See, I've been a truck driver, heavy equipment operator, but mostly I was very active until I got into one particular job for a while just because it made really, really, really good money. I could draw two salaries. I was running a kill truck and working on a pulling unit at the same time. So mostly when you run a kill truck, you're there for well control. You're simply pumping liquids down into the well bore while the service rigs are working to keep the gas pushed down into the formation of the ground so that the gas doesn't come up and aggravate, bother, even possibly injure or kill the men working on the floor of the service rig, which is called a well service rig, is a pulling unit. Many different varieties. Some you can drill with, some are just for pulling. Lots of different ones. But nonetheless, a kill truck job is long hours and not a whole lot of setting down. People in prison, by the way, I'm a Christian as well. I'm not religious, but I am a Christian. And so we'll get to some of those channels in a little bit. But let me tell you something. I volunteered to teach and preach in prisons, and I did so. And guys in prison sharing a small cell, 2 per cell, they have it better than a kill truck operator when it comes to space. They have more freedoms. When you run a kill truck, you sit in the truck all day long. You are required to be awake when they're working on the floor. It is hard to stay there, and you don't get much exercise for the most part. In the area where I'm at, the average well bores about 7,000-ish feet, and this was back before fracking was really, really popular, and they went with horizontal wells, so mostly you just had a vertical well, 7,000 feet, 5,000 feet, somewhere in there. Gas wells could probably venture up to 10,000, sometimes 15,000, but not very often. But nonetheless, you're sitting there all day. If they're tripping pipe or they're swapping pumps or whatever, if they're on a workover rig, which a lot of time I was on a workover rig, you just sit there. If you're on a pump change, just like a production rig, you're just out doing pump changes and stuff, it goes really quickly. I don't want to bore most of you people we don't want to talk about that. But nonetheless, I decided one day to do something. I decided to quit. I decided to give up smoking. This has been years ago. I think May is about to be 8 years. I've lost track because I don't really keep track of that anymore. Smoking is not something that even crosses my mind anymore, but I want to go back and make a video. I already have it written down actually. These are lists of things that I will be discussing in the video about cessation, but it's instead of being an Oaty cessation channel, it's now going to be absorbed by Box of Chocolates, and it's going to be a playlist on Oaty Box of Chocolates. So I gave up smoking about 8 years ago, and I got out of a hot oil unit where you actually work, you hump it, you busy, like 14 hours a day of just labor, rigging up, rigging down, not really standing anywhere in one place for probably more than 30 minutes. And then you're rigging down, moving again, going to get loaded, come back, do it all over again. Very active. Kill truck, you sit on your butt inside of the cab of that truck, which is small compared to even a prison cell, versus you can only watch so much TV, you can only read so many books, music goes bad really quickly, and you can only doodle for so long. And so what do? Depends on who you are, but I ate. I went from 176 pounds from running a hot oil, or muscle mostly. I'm not a really tall guy. I'm like 5'10", 5 foot, somewhere in there. And then I ate, and I shot up to I think my biggest was just a hair over 250 pounds on my frame. And when you don't carry it through your shoulders, and you don't carry it on your arms, and you don't carry it on your thighs, you look like a beach ball. You look like you swallowed a beach ball. And so, yeah. So that is where this channel that we're just discussing now, Oaty Weight Loss, comes in. And so I am going to be doing the slow carb diet. You can actually Google and find this on YouTube. You can find the information on the internet. Timothy Ferriss has done an amazing job as an author of writing all of his books, and he has done an amazing amount of research and study, and it's kind of in a lot of ways been his life. But so I'm going to try the slow carb diet and see what kind of luck I have with that. And that's what Oaty the Weight Loss is. So getting back to the book by David Goggins, You Can't Hurt Me. If you're freaking fat, you're freaking fat. There's no shame in being any way that you are, unless you don't like it and you don't want to change. So what I'm doing is for me, And actually also because I want to live a little longer. Quitting smoking, and if you're out there and you're a smoker, I'd encourage you go. Just quit. It can be done. I've had some devastating things happen in my life as a result of people smoking, and lost of loved ones and just a whole lot of stuff. I didn't want to go down that road. So I quit. And I talk all about that, and it'll be in the videos. But David Goggins' book is an amazing book as well if you can get past all the cussing. But there's nothing about shaming anyone who's overweight. I would never do that just to make fun of somebody. I myself, I was bullied when I was younger, so I know what it's like to be picked on. And if you're out there and you're overweight, I hope that you'll follow, and I hope, I don't have any doubt that I'm going to lose the weight, and do maybe even some kind of a body transformation. But I kind of let myself go, and as I sat in that truck and began to eat, and the pounds piled on, and I know you're like 250 pounds, you're not fat. When you can't bend over and tie your shoes very easily, or you struggle to do so because something's in the bend down, yeah, to me, in my opinion, I'm going to do it. So I hope that there's going to be something that you can glean from my efforts in trying to do that. Now, absorbed. Just going to toss it back there. Okie dokie. Next on the list is a YouTube channel. This is not getting absorbed by Oaty Box of Chocolates. This is going to be all on its own. Oaty Bible Stories. Being a Christian, I have worked with many children, many groups of people. I've served in many different capacities as a Bible teacher. Never pastored. Was great assistant to pastors. But I got I wouldn't say crossways. I would say I wound up doing prison ministry, and now I'm excited to be doing ministry again online. But because I disagreed with some, trying to avoid sounding, I don't care. I do care. So I disagree with the way the church is being ran today. I think that the church that the Lord started is being ran much more like a business. I am a member of a church. I do go to a church. But I got out of the politics of local church, and I just decided to go to the prisons and minister to those people who are incarcerated. There's a lot of bad people in prison. There's a lot of good people in prison too. Almost all of them guilty. Guilty. And I think prison's a good thing for those kinds of people. But nonetheless, we were in the scriptures, the Lord said to go visit them in prison. And so I found the prison ministry very rewarding. But aside from the prison ministry, I have served in many capacities, and one of my favorite things to do is to teach young minds. I love working with children. As of right now, I and my wife, we have 6 children. All of them are grown. If you'll go watch, there's another channel we're starting called, and she'll probably make an appearance on everyone because she's like my right-hand person. The only daughter we have left to raise here at home is Carly. And so Carly is like, me and Carly are really close right now. All the other kids have grown, married, moved off, started their own families. But me and my wife, we have 6 kids. And then we have, as of right now, 8 grandchildren. So, yeah, and if anyone's out there who understands the whole XY chromosome thing, let me tell you, girls, we have 6 granddaughters. We have 4 daughters. We have 2 grandsons. Girls tend to dominate in this family. So, but having said that, kids, I love kids. I love teaching kids, and I will be teaching flannel graph stories. About right now, we're well over the 200 mark of as content-wise on which stories we're going to teach. I'm going to do the Betty Lukens flannel graph stories, Bible stories for children, for kids, and so I'll be teaching through that. But besides that, there's roughly around probably a total of 350, 400 Bible stories that I'll be teaching, and not all of them necessarily on flannel graph, but for the most part. And for every single video that I do, I say every single video, as of right now it's the plan. For every child video that I teach, I will also be doing an adult version of the same section of scripture. So Oaty Bible Stories coming up. It's its own channel. And then in coherence with that, and coherence? Right along the same lines as that is going to be, I haven't decided the names yet, but it's going to be One Arm Twinkie, Oaty Bible Shorts for YouTube and TikTok. So starting a TikTok as well. For Oaty Bible Shorts for TikTok, basically we're going to do the once over, and that's it, because you only got a minute on TikTok apparently, or less, to get your message across. And so we're going to be going through discussing this. And so for Bible Shorts on YouTube, basically we're going to be going through the Bible. We're going to do an overview of the Bible. That's the book. And then after that, we're going to be doing an overview over the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Bible itself is 66 books divided into 2 testaments. 39 books in the Old Testament, 27 books in the New Testament. And then we're going to do an overview. Once we get through with that, we're going to be doing an overview of basically every single chapter in the Bible. There are 1,189 chapters in the Bible. And so we're going to be doing a 1-minute video basically summarizing all of that. And it's going to be categorized. It'll be in its own YouTube channel, and it'll be categorized. So if anybody was interested in going and just getting a brief once over, that'll be a good place to go. And then maybe after that, maybe we'll go on to do a video on every single verse of the Bible. Wouldn't that be great? But how long is it going to take us to make 1,200 videos, 1 minute long? I think we're going to be doing some batching and probably some major uploading. They'll be very simple. And what can you say in a minute? I mean, about a book that's there's just, I don't think if we had 10 lifetimes there would be enough to cover about that book. It's a living book. It's an amazing book. All right. This is where we're at today. Oaty Box of Chocolates. In Oaty Box of Chocolates, there is all kinds of topics. We can cover everything from travel to other books, which I want to talk about here in a minute. Some that got absorbed into a box of chocolates is, I thought about, since we live in the Southwest. It started out with ghost towns. Oaty Ghost Towns was going to be a YouTube channel, and then there just turned out to be too much content. And so what we did was we thought, well, how about just a haunted ghost towns? And then that turned into, well, like for example, my daughter, she likes to do some urban exploration, and so we go to different places. And so we went to Costa Rica, for example. We went to there's an insane asylum there that's kind of abandoned in the jungle. We went to an old insane asylum, and I thought, well, how about if we, instead of just doing haunted ghost towns, and then there's ancient ruins. We went to Belize, and we seen some of the Mayan ruins there. And so in Costa Rica, there's a prison we didn't even get to go to. We went to an abandoned church in the jungle. We went to Guayabo, to the ancient ruins there out in the jungle, and we went down to Seripe and saw the spheres, Los Feros, and it's down by the Panamanian border on the Pacific side, on the south side of the country, on the south side of Central America, basically, almost South America. Anyway, so we went down there, and there's so much things that we want to share, that I want to share, that I think people would be interested in. And so what we did was we just said, I say we, I'm not like me, myself, and I'm not paranoid schizophrenic. Well, I don't think I am. Anyway, I wanted to be able to cover all of these things and not just ghost towns, Oaty ghost towns. So like we have tons of ghost towns here in New Mexico. I could take you around within a 150-mile radius and show you probably 10 different places where there used to be people and buildings, and now there's just buildings, if there's even buildings left, old homesteads. So there's just too much topic. So I said, we're going to pick out some really interesting ones and do the best entertainment that we can for the listener. So into Oaty Box of Chocolates, I'm going to set this one here for now, because this is where the YouTube channel, actually, we got to the description was so big that D said, Tony, knock it off. My name's Tony, by the way. He said, knock it off. And you can't add all that. You can't put all that on a YouTube channel. I was like, well, why not? And he said, the title's too long. He said, there's algorithms and stuff. And I was like, algo what? Anyway, so he said, you need to do something different. And so I said, okay, let's do something different. And so what we decided to do was let Oaty Box of Chocolates absorb this. Get this as the title: Oaty Ghost Towns, Ancient Cities, and Mysterious Ruins. All of that was going to be a YouTube channel. We got tons of content. I got a stack of content this big that we will never get through just because there's too much to do. But there are some really cool places that we're going to cover under that which got absorbed into Oaty Baca Chocolates. Now, think of this. Underground. Did you know that Los Angeles is like 3 cities on top of each other? New York, same way. All over Europe, France, the River Thames. All of these places have multiple levels of cities underneath them, all over Turkey. El Paso, Texas. I love El Paso. By the way, if you ever get to El Paso, since this is Oaty Baca Chocolates and we can talk about whatever, I'm going to tell you about a restaurant called, there's many good Mexican restaurants in there, but Carlos and Mickey's. Is it Carlos and Mickey's? No, Carlos and Mickey's were friends of my grandparents. It's called Mickey's and Carlos's? No, it's Carlos and Mickey's. Mickey and Roland's was my grandparents' friends. Carlos and Mickey's. It's a great place. They have like, it's almost like Jalisco style, from the ocean, from the desert, from Juarez, everything you can possibly think of. The food is amazing, and the only thing better than the food is the service. By the way, they're not paying me. I don't even think anyone there speaks English. No, that's not true. They do speak English. If you ever get to El Paso, they have several different locations. I think they still have one in the airport that's open. If you're flying or you're passing through the ELP, did anyone just see what I just saw? Right through here, if you back it up like 10 seconds, I just saw an insect fly through the screen. I hate flies. Spring in New Mexico is like the best time because there's no flies. There is definitely something flying around here. It may be a bee. It's nighttime, I'm recording. Chances are it's a fly. Probably a horse fly, being this early in the spring. We'll have flies later on. I don't like flies. I don't like mosquitoes. In fact, we usually take an escape. We're actually planning a trip to Costa Rica. We usually take an escape in the wintertime and get down to Costa Rica at least once a year. And I love it because you go to the jungle and you would expect, especially down on the Caribbean side by a place called Puerto Viejo, there's different places. Punta Uva, Manzanillo, they're on the side of Limon. I don't go to Limon. As far as I know, and as best as I can ever tell, I drove through Limon by accident one time. Limon's, Costa Rica is, I don't want to live there. Okay. Yeah, they have a beautiful highway that skirts it. But so, down there we were in a place called Manzanillo, which is about as far down the Caribbean coast towards Panama as you can get before the road just ends. It ends at a national park there. There's tons of national parks there, but it's right on the Caribbean coast. Beautiful water, beautiful, everything's beautiful. People are beautiful. And so we went into a restaurant there called Maxie's. And while we were there, I saw 2 flies. In Spanish, fly is called mosca. So I nicknamed that restaurant Dos Moscas. It was me, my friend named Jaime, and Veronica, his wife, and my wife Shelly. We were there, and we went to eat at Maxie's. They recommend Maxie's. If you go to Maxie's, get some with steak, stay away from the fish. Anyways, it's called Dos Moscas in my work, but it's called Maxie's. I hate flies. I can't stand flies. And so I have a fly flying around here right now. I can't hear him, but I do see him zipping in front of the screen. One of these days I'm going to take the camera off. In the process of setting up all of this stuff and getting the costumes ready, speaking of another costume, I'm going to jump off topic once again. And I will show you this bad boy. This is for another YouTube channel that I'm going to cover in a minute. But this is for Oaty Kids World. The kids have been playing with this because they have readjusted it. So, this is Oaty Kids World. This is a YouTube channel that will not be getting absorbed into Oaty Baca Chocolates. Just wanted to say that. It's another costume. So, put a lot of time and effort into these videos and to these costumes, and I made some short videos recording just as we made it, so in the future somebody might like say, hey, how did you go about putting all this together, or how long did it take? So one of these days I'll take the camera off and I will show everybody around inside here, and yeah, what it looks like in our little studio. Let me tell you what the studio is. Studio is our garage. It's our garage is separate from our house, and so the garage was basically split in half because my wife homeschooled, and this was, we call it the schoolroom to this day, but it's actually not the schoolroom. This is This is now the office. But so we converted half of the garage, or almost half the garage, into like a little studio. And that's where we're at now. If I take the camera off, Dee will be upset with me, and then I'll have everything out of whack. Right now the camera, can't see my face while we're there. All right, so, yeah, so getting back to, I'm off topic again. Oaty. I think we were talking about Oaty, where Oaty Ghost Town's got absorbed into the place. But yeah, so we were going down through all of Central America. I lost track of where I'm at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apologize once only because I'm sincere about it. Forgive me. And we're going to move right on. So now we're going to go to Oaty Book Reviews. Oaty Book Reviews is another YouTube channel we're going to have. I have to check my list. I can't remember. Oaty Book Reviews, I believe, may be getting absorbed. Looking at my list, I have a lot of stuff on this table. And this is where the magic happens. According to Mr. Ballin, I call him Balin, but his name is Ballin. I believe John Allen is his name. If you go to TikTok and you watch John Allen, or on YouTube, I think it's, Mr. Ballin. I think it's Mr. Ballin, and on YouTube, just Google Mr. Ballin. He's doing well. He's got like 7.5 million followers on TikTok, and coming up on 2 million, I think, on YouTube. He hasn't written a book yet, as far as I know, but he's another amazing Navy SEAL. He is just an amazing human being, and I think the world of him. Never met the guy, by the way. So let's see. Oaty weight loss, Oaty book reviews. Yep, Oaty book reviews is getting absorbed by Oaty box of chocolates. So there's going to be a playlist, and as I make a video on a book review, it will be added under the book reviews. Mr. Ballin, if you're listening, or if you ever see this, I hope someday you write a book. By the way, there's another fellow I'd like to shout out to, and so Oaty book reviews getting absorbed into Oaty box of chocolates. We'll talk more about book reviews in a second, but if for some reason he's out there, David Goggins, you wrote a book called You Can't Hurt Me, amazing book, like your book. Towards the end of the book, you started to talk about some, like a different pace of stuff. Stop cussing so much. That didn't matter to me either way, but I don't judge you. But I would really like it if you would put out a book on stretching, because you talked about stretching, and let me tell you something. I stopped driving a truck, and I stopped working in the oil field here about 6 months ago. I tried to take the leap and move over to doing something else, and it was COVID. COVID really slowed down a lot, and then we have our governor here in New Mexico. I'm not going to get into the politics on this channel, but let me tell you, our governor is not very supportive of the oil field. I'm not going to take a stand or a position on any of that right now because I'm waiting for King Jesus. Actually, I think he's going to be coming soon. I hope he does. But I got out of a routine of working for decades. I mean, long hours. You work out here, you work days. I worked one job one time. It's ridiculous, to the point where, very foolish of me, by the way, I worked about 36 hours on and 12 hours off for almost a year. It's just crazy, some of the things that you need to do in order to provide the world with petroleum. But we like driving cars, and we like having warm houses in the wintertime. So people do what they got to do. But what I'm saying is, David Goggins, my body has atrophied to the point, one, where I am obese from, everybody knows about the quit smoking and started eating, and that's been about 8 years ago. It's taken a toll on my body because I traded one, I traded one bad habit for another. I gave up smoking for eating, because food, when you quit smoking, let me tell you something, I smoked for 30 years, close to 30 years, 35 years. Let's see, I started when I was in 19 maybe-ish, and then I quit roughly 8 years ago. How old am I now? It's a long time, almost 3 decades of smoking. Let me tell you something, your taste buds stop working. And when you quit smoking, food tastes amazing. So, one of the affinities I have with restaurants around here. Um, I just love to eat. And so I put on some pounds, and I traded one bad habit for another bad habit. And basically, bad habits are nothing more than a lack of self-discipline. It's simply that if you're obese, if you smoke, I hear preachers preach about in my life all these different things. It doesn't really matter. If you have an issue with anything, it's probably a lack of self-discipline. The Apostle Paul said, "I won't be brought under the power of any," and I have. So, David Goggins, if you'll make a book on stretching, because my body has atrophied to the point to where stretching, when I do the video, I have a yoga mat right here. Stretching is something that I'm beginning to get into. I'll tell you what brought it all about was a couple years ago. I was hauling oil. I was running in the middle of the night, and I had to get across this location to do something. And I pulled a hamstring when I was running across an oil field location. I dropped to my knees in pain. When you have a tendon break it behind your leg, and then that muscle just balls up at the top, I've been in some situations where I had some pain in my life. I think everybody has. That hurt. It hurt, and it took a long time to recover from, and it messed up my back. It led to a lot of other problems, but hey, body's amazing. I went and learned how they heal and everything else. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, just getting on, so I would love to see a book. A book, Oaty book reviews. I got into reading. I've always been kind of a reader, but not really hard. When I was in the kill truck, you can go through some stuff. You can literally read some stuff when you are sitting down all day long. And I know I'm coming all over the map with this video, guys, so forgive me. As we're going through, I'm thinking back about things that I started to talk about, and then I changed subjects. I'm just excited to make videos for you guys and to share. I really want to share and be a blessing to somebody of some kind. I want to entertain. I want to put something positive out there that will help other people. I've had a lot of stuff in my life where I have benefited from pretty much everything. Knowledge. You come in not knowing anything. I had some really good opportunities in my life where people share things with me and take time to, especially my granddad, step-granddad. People who just take an interest in you. And so I hope that by watching the content that I put out through these channels, Oaty Box of Chocolates and these, I hope you benefit. But Oaty book reviews, many different books we're going to be reviewing. Quite a few of them actually by Navy SEALs. So Mr. Ballin, get out there and write us a book. David Goggins, write another book. I'm going to stop preaching on that now, but no, there are some amazing books out there. And the reason why I find these books I actually have a couple friends that were Navy SEALs. One of them, he's not with us anymore, but he was supposed to be the best man at my wedding, and then he didn't show up. And so I had a different person stand in to be the best friend at my wedding. And after my wedding, I called him. I was like, "Hey, bro, what happened?" Back then there were no cell phones, by the way. You had to go call. It wasn't something you just pick up and get somebody. And so, no, he was in a really bad accident, and he was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And he's no longer with us, but he never recovered from that, from the waist down. He was done. And so, a lot of the books that I'll be covering during Oaty book reviews is simply written by Navy SEALs, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are self-help business books. And I'm thinking just Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is a good book. That's one. Let's think about another one. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it's Dale Carnegie. Not positive. I think it's Dale Carnegie. All of Timothy Ferriss's books are good. I got a couple of books that are written by different Navy SEALs. One of them's Emerson. Let's see what else is out there that we can think of. I'm trying to think of the title of the book. One of the best books for small businesses is actually, I learned about this through one of Timothy Ferriss's books. 4 Hour Work Week, he gives a list of books. If you want to get some really good books, in my opinion, business wise, you'll want to go find, probably on his blog, Timothy Ferriss's reading list of books, and that would be for business. But there's a book put out called The E-Myth Revisited: Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It, and it's by Michael E. Gerber. It's a good book. So Oaty book reviews, we'll be talking about many different kinds of books or many different topics. Survival books, that's another channel that is going to be going, which is the next one up. We're on from books. Oaty Survival. I would like to learn a lot more than what I know about survival, and I think the best way to learn is to go and teach other people. I personally would be comfortable walking off by myself, not Bear Grylls style. I don't really follow Bear Grylls or any of the survival guys on TV, but just practical, undramatized, helpful hacks in life. I would like to share that on the channel so that people would know. Like, for example, we live in a day and age where you can get a Sawyer water filter. I'm a big fan of people who do the long distance hikes. Homemade Wanderlust, if you ever go watch any of, I think her name's Jessica, if you watch any of her videos on YouTube, she hikes the Pacific Crest Trail. She has hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, the Central Divide Trail, and the Appalachian Trail. All of them. And I don't know what she's doing now. I haven't checked on her in the past couple months to see if she's got anything going on this new spring or not. But she has gone through the Appalachian Trail. It goes from Georgia to Maine. The Central Divide Trail, it goes straight up the middle of the United States to Canada. It starts here in Alaska, in New Mexico, down by on the Mexican border, near the Mexican border, and goes north up through the Gila Wilderness and just straight on Colorado, I think Wyoming. I don't know what all it hits, but it goes up. It's around 3,300 miles, I think, that trail. The Appalachian Trail, I'm thinking, is bumping around 2,600 miles. Was it 2,200 miles? And I think she does also the PCT, which is the Pacific Crest Trail, and she starts down in El Campo, or Campo. By the way, talking about the books that I just laid down, another book is a really good book. It's called Out on Foot. It's like Nightly Patrols and Ghostly Confessions of a Border Patrol Agent by Rocky Elmore. Something along those lines. That could not be the title, but I think it's called Out on Foot. And really good book. It's a book that he couldn't write until after he was retired because he might have got fired for talking about some things he's talking about. But anyways, interesting book. But Rocky Elmore was a Border Patrol agent he retired from the Border Patrol, and he spent a lot of time in El Campo, or down by El Campo, in Southern California. That's where the Pacific Crest Trail starts, and it goes all the way up, I think 7 miles into Canada, and it hits all through California, Oregon, and Washington, and it covers national parks, state parks, like 44. There's an unbelievable number. It goes through Joshua Tree, and so by watching that, I learned about the Sawyer water filter. Talking about this Oaty survival now, just the basic stuff. Sawyer water filter. I've got 2 of them right out here. It's not a bug out bag really, but I mean, come on. If you're gonna prep, do we prep? Everyone should prep to some degree. Do I prep? Do I have a bomb shelter in my backyard? I don't really need one. But to some degree, I think survival plays an important role, and there's many different types of survival. There's social survival. There's, a woman who's in an abusive relationship is a form of survival. Working in the prisons, there's lots of survival type of content. Some of the books, 2 of the books that the Navy SEALs wrote that I have read, that'll be on the review list, are about survival. It's like 100 deadly survivor skills and stuff like that. So, but just basic survival. I'm not going to get into the whole Canadian Prepper, amazing channel. If you're going to go check out the Canadian Prepper, I follow him. I don't follow him religiously. I don't follow Jessica from Homemade Wanderlust religiously, but I do follow them extremely closely. And I've learned a lot of things like the Sawyer water filter, just basic. If you have a Sawyer water filter, if you're familiar with trucking at all, and you understand how many barrels, actually, 42 gallons in a barrel. Just a basic transport, a liquid hauling trailer will carry anywhere from 130 to like 210 barrels of fluid, depending on the weight and the what the product is that you're hauling. But nonetheless, if you had one Sawyer water filter, it would filter like 13,000 gallons of water, 100,000 gallons of water. Depending on the filter that you get, they're cheap. No one should ever be without one to travel. We travel a lot, and when we travel, I say we travel a lot. We don't travel a lot. We're not like another blog that I follow is Christian LeBlanc, Lost LeBlanc. He's a Canadian who's been doing travel, and he's a YouTuber as well as, I don't know if he's a blogger, but is another girl who he knows is, and Laura Reed. I followed Laura and Christian for a long time, along with a bunch of other people's. But traveling, just in general, when we travel, we go to Costa Rica, we go to Central America, we go to Belize, we go somewhere, we carry on. I don't do checked baggage. If I was going to Europe and I was going to be there for 6 months, maybe I would carry on luggage. If I go down to see Zane in Belize, then I might bring a baggage full of whatever, and that would be the only reason to do checked baggage for me. But you can even carry a water filter inside of your carry-on luggage. They're extremely small, and you will never, as long as you can find fresh water to drink, you will never be out without safe drinking water. You know, they talk about traveler's D, you know, getting the diarrhea when you're out traveling because you're drinking from different water places. I know in Belize most of the water is safe to drink. In Costa Rica, pretty much all the water is safe to drink. And then but everywhere you turn, and there's streams that you may not just want to drink right out of. And locally around here, man, I grew up drinking water windmills. The water hose out in the house. When I was growing up, you drink everything was outside. So you could slap a water filter on it. They have the straws. They have the ones that screw onto the bottle cap. Important thing of survival. Number one, you got to have water. You can go days and weeks without food, but you can't go without water for very long. And so just the basic survival is what I'm interested in sharing. So Oaty Survival YouTube channel, not going to happen. It got absorbed into Oaty Box of Chocolates. It's going to be a playlist. I hope that I'm able to provide some content from you guys, as well as learn a lot myself. It's going to be one of my favorites. Don't know what all's going on in it yet, but ooh, I can see that's not working with the lighting very well. For some reason, this is like a reflective notebook. Oaty Odd Universe. I just had to have this. I've been a fan of Coast to Coast AM for years. I listen to multiple channels about all kinds of just strange stuff. And let me tell you, being a Christian, you read the Bible, you're going to find out there's a lot of strange things in the world. And so this is a must-have channel. This is not getting absorbed by anything. Oaty Odd Universe. We're going to stick all kinds of things in there about creation. And like, did you know there's rainbow mountains in China? There's actually multiple rainbow mountain formations in the world. We call them the Rainbow Mountains. They're amazing. They're beautiful to look at. But the Rainbow Mountains in China are probably the best. Also, I think there's some in Utah. I know they're in Arizona. Might be Wyoming. Some in California. But those kinds of things going in here. It's going to be a great channel for... when I was in middle school, in the 7th grade, 6th grade was middle school, every time we would go to the library, it seemed like every boy, and I'm sure the girls too, every boy was always looking for the spooky books, for the mysterious books, for, the Bermuda Triangle. Always been interested in that. I think it's just maybe what a lot of people are interested in. But yeah, it's a strange world that we live in. Oaty Odd Universe, not getting absorbed into anything. Here's one. Oaty Bizarre, Strange, and Weird. BSW. Oaty Bizarre, Strange, and Weird. So basically this YouTube channel isn't getting absorbed. What we'll be discussing here are disorders and diseases that affect our species. So, disorders and diseases that affect our species. We're talking about things like Alice in Wonderland syndrome. There are just so many. There's literally over 1,200 that I could find on one website, different diseases. And so I'll be dressed up like a doctor. I'll be dressed up like a clinical psychiatrist. And I'll be dressed up in a straitjacket with a Hannibal Lecter mask on, in costume, as we talk about Oaty, Bizarre, Strange, and Weird. BSNW. Yep, so Oaty, not getting absorbed. Oaty Bizarre, Strange, and Weird is not getting absorbed. That is going to be a channel. Here's one. Oaty Monsters. There's another one of them covers that's not reacting with the light very well. So, if you can see this. Oaty Monsters. This is going to be about serial killers. I have... Oh, and by the way, back to the book review. I heard of a book years and years and years ago called, I think it's For Those Who Hunt Monsters. I can't remember the name of the FBI agent who basically invented profiling and for the reason of catching serial killers, the FBI, they do some amazing things. And FBI profilers, they're some of the brightest, well-trained minds out there. But the book was written, I believe it's called For Those Who Hunt Monsters. I will be doing a book review on that. But basically, I have always been fascinated by, I would say fascinated or infatuated, amazed at the amount of evil that this world is capable of experiencing. If I didn't have an understanding of the scriptures and knowing where a lot of that comes from and how it arrives here and what's going to be coming in the near future, well, I'm telling you, I would probably sit around and go crazy just trying to figure out some people. When I was growing up, I was friends with a psychopath, basically, and not intentional friends. It's like my mom was good friends with his mom. This dude wasn't really capable of feeling remorse, and he only thought about himself. We're the same age, and I remember when we went to the same schools, and I remember there was always something different about him. We were sitting in across. By the way, I'm not saying he's a serial killer. I don't know where he's at today or what he's doing, but I know he had a lot of behavioral issues that were very similar to many of them. I would like to really just come up with some way. I want you to understand that I have a special place in my heart for females. I grew up with 2 sisters, a loving mom. The majority of my cousins were female. I have 1 brother, 2 sisters. I have 2 boys. I raised 4 girls. And I already told you that I have 6 granddaughters, 2 grandsons. These girls, these females in my life, and not to mention tons of bus kids that I used to bring to church, many of them are adults now. These females are growing up in a very hostile world where pornography is rampant. It is affecting the minds of men in very, very negative ways. If you're addicted to porn, stop it. Stop it. It will rot your soul. I have a story that I may share about a guy who I thought was my friend years ago. This is very, very, very personal. We grew up together. This guy's like a brother to me the whole time we were growing up. And something happened that he had done that let me know. By the way, if he's still alive, he's in prison. I haven't spoken to him since the end of his trial. I may share that story with you guys someday. It's a very famous trial. It's a landmark trial in Texas, actually. I was stumped. I can't believe, to this day, I cannot fathom the things that this person done, and I'm pretty sure it all stemmed from a porn addiction. I drink alcohol. I like to have a beer once in a while. I'm not going to do it on the channel, so I'm going to get a drink now. I'm talking about my mouth is dry. I don't drink a lot. I wasn't raised by someone who drank a lot. My dad might bring home a 6-pack from the rig, and by the way, my dad was an oil field guy too. He worked on pulling units, drilling rigs, then pulling units, and then he retired from that. And then, he retired when he was old. He never retired. He just worked, but he went to work in a shop where they built the rigs. When he was older, he went in and helped build it. He was work on the hydraulics and every aspect of the rig. He could build a rig from the ground up, and he did. But he would, bring home a 6-pack from work, and it might sit in the fridge for months, maybe, and then he would drink a couple of beers, and then after a while, it just sat in there so long and threw it out. So I wasn't raised by a drinker. I don't know if if people drink because they've seen their family grow up drinking, or I don't know a whole lot about it. I know some people who aren't very good drinkers, they become addicted. Like it's something they can't control. Just another thing that I talked about, the lack of self-control. I think pornography, I think some people have a tendency to not be able to control that. If you're in there, man, get out. Like, before you damage yourself, before you hurt somebody, or go do your own thing. You know what? It's I believe in free will. God gave us free will. He doesn't violate our free will, not at all. But I also can tell you that if you're playing with something and you're not in control of it, it's going to bite. Maybe one of these days I'll share that story. But getting back to my friend, I'm not going to call his name out. I don't know where he's at these days. That was one friend. That I grew up with that guy. Okay, I don't mind telling you, his name was Freddie. Not Freddy Krueger. It's just Freddie. But the evil in this world and what it's capable of doing is just unsettling. It's hard to comprehend. And so by studying these people, I wish I could find a way so that every female, because mostly females are targeted by serial killers, but there are a few female serial killers too that I can think of off the top of my head. But I would like to maybe someday come up with a list of criteria that women can carry with them, especially when we're traveling. I see a lot of backpackers, solo female backpackers. Good job for you for going out and living your life and doing these things. Your dad worries about you when you're gone. Let me tell you, I know, because I'm raising daughters. My daughters, it's sad that you have to train your children to be prepared to defend themselves in this world that we live in. You can't my daughters, you won't find them without a cutting blade on them, with a cutting tool. It's a box cutter, a small knife. I have bought so many knives for my daughters over the years, and from the time they were able to, my daughters can tell you exactly, self-defense, but they can tell you exactly how to slice somebody's jugular. You know you're in a bad world when you have to raise. And by the way, my wife's good looking. I'm not flexing here. My daughters, and I'm going to tell you something that they wouldn't understand if I told them. All of my daughters, you're going to see Carly, and Haley, my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter. We're going to be doing Oaty jokes and riddles together. They're good looking. I fear sometimes, I wish that they weren't so attractive. That almost sounds twisted to be thinking like that, because I'm like, why would you want ugly offspring? Because I think that maybe they would be a little less of a target, a little less noticed. I don't know. Sometimes there's just not any answers, and we go around worrying about things that maybe we shouldn't be worrying about. But this is going to be a channel. This is a proposed channel. It's not going to be absorbed by anything. Oaty Monsters. I'll be dressing up like Sherlock Holmes to discuss serial killers. My granddaughter Haley is going to be dressing up like John Watson, and I think the first one we're going to cover is, and so we went to secondhand stores and we came up with all these costumes our own. But this is my deer hunters, or deer, whatever they have a name for it. My daughter and Carly and Haley, my granddaughter, they are fans of Sherlock Holmes. It's elementary, my dear Watson. So, but anyways, I have the whole outfit thing that we put together, and so I'll be dressing up like Sherlock Holmes to cover, because the most famous serial killer of all time, I think, is, or was, the early one, Jack the Ripper. So we'll be covering Jack the Ripper, and I think that was Scotland Yard's job, and Sherlock Holmes, and not to be confused with H.H. Holmes, the serial killer H.H. Holmes from New York. Henry Herbert Holmes, or whatever his name was, the doctor who had the murder castle. I don't know if y'all know him, but we will be doing a review on H.H. Holmes, not to be confused with Sherlock Holmes. Actually, I think H.H. Holmes was before Sherlock Holmes. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, so we'll be doing the very first Jack the Ripper, and then from there on, we're just going to be talking about people who are monsters. And so, Oaty Monsters. It's about serial killers. Oh, by the way, I wanted to throw this shameless plug out there for a girl that I do follow on YouTube. And I actually just discovered her this week. There's two of them. One of them, she talks with an accent. It seems like a British accent. You know, like you say socks and she'll say sulks. But I don't think I think her accent's fake. So I'm not going to name her channel because I haven't decided if I'm going to promote it or not. I don't know. But I can tell you one that I will follow, and the woman does an amazing job. And her name is Bailey Serene. Bailey Serene. And she does a YouTube channel called Murder, Makeup, and Mystery. She will discuss a serial killer while she puts on her makeup. Today, I watched the video of her covering a New Mexico serial killer, which is my home state here in the land of enchantment, over in a place that I actually drove by for the first time a couple weeks ago. I went to see my granddaughter. I have two of my kids live in Albuquerque-ish area, and I have a son that's a pastor up there actually, and I have a daughter who is married to a pastor's son, so maybe my grandson, that's my other grandson, he's the baby. The other one's in Houston. Maybe he'll be a preacher someday, I don't know. But my son, I go up to see my son and my granddaughter there. My granddaughter lives with my son. My son has a daughter, and my daughter has a son. So I go up to visit them pretty regularly. The rest of the grandkids live here, except for two who live in Houston. They all live right here in southeastern New Mexico, right here with us. I get to see them all the time. I actually, since I got out of the oil field, I've been babysitting for free. So my daughter and I have a babysitter. She and her husband work all the time. And so I get to watch my 3-year-old granddaughter constantly. And I literally love her. You will see her in videos. That's Mary. And Mary is a pill. Mary is a very busy person. And no, I love her. So I watch her while she works for now. And I actually asked her to because she was looking for a babysitter and not really wanting to go with the daycare because of the COVID thing and all that. My daughter owned her own business for a while, and she was up basically as oil field related. She owned, don't take this the wrong way, she owned an escort business where they would go out and when you do rig moves and stuff, like when you're moving drillings, there's like convoys of heavy haul trucks shuttling these big rigs around in pieces, and so they do a rig move. It may take a couple of days depending on where they're moving to. So and then they're setting up a lot of wind turbines as well to renewable energy type stuff. And so, but they own an escort, and so she would be gone, and they would be the escort vehicles for these oversized loads. And when she came back home, because that being gone didn't work out, and the business slowed down with the slowdown of COVID and all, it just went under. Everybody I know, we lost the dump truck business. We had a trucking business, and besides having full-time jobs and working other places and a couple online businesses, we lost big time over the COVID deal. So I just don't want to go back to that kind of life. I'm ready to see if I can free up some of my time and provide a service to somebody in the process of doing it. So I have and do write children's stories. I love children, and I've written children's stories for a long time. If I reach around 100,000 subscribers, maybe between all of the channels, or if I'm able to grow a following to that degree, I may start revealing my books and what books I've written and stuff. They're on Amazon. There's some on Amazon, but I don't. Here's the thing about Amazon, KDP, Kindle Publishing, and I don't know how to say this without saying something because I'm kind of grateful that they're there. Amazon's a ripoff. I can tell you, I'm grateful for Amazon Prime. I'm grateful for the internet, the way things are working. But let me tell you, if you're an author trying to sell a book on Amazon, a lot of YouTube videos out there telling people how they're doing it and how they're killing it. But I think they might be making more money telling people how they're, with the exception of one. I'm going to throw out a plug for, if I can remember her name. I followed her for years. Why can't I remember her name? Probably because I tried to think about it. I've learned a lot of stuff from this girl, along with many others. But I want to put a plug out there to give her the credit. It's not coming to me. If I think about it in a minute, I'll mention her name. But she has an amazing YouTube channel, and I've learned a lot of stuff from her. Why can't I think of her name? Anyways, with the exception of her and a few others, I know there's a lot of people saying that they're killing it on KDP, and I know that there are people who are, but I have written quite a few children's stories. One series, I didn't have any luck. I am not beyond saying that I'm not good at marketing, but I spent a lot of money in marketing on the internet, Google marketing, Facebook marketing. I think it's better if I take a different strategy when I try to sell my books. Or maybe my books just stink. I don't think that's the case. But maybe it's just not something somebody wants to hear about. Or maybe I haven't gotten there. But Amazon, when you go on Amazon, it gets about 65%. That leaves me with the cost of the book being published, as well as the marketing, as well as taxes. We all know that tax season just passed. I'll tell y'all some tax jokes, but I just don't feel like laughing about taxes right now. Just the thought of taxes put me in a bad mood. Okay, we're better. Anyways, this book right here is going to be a channel. Oaty Monsters. I lost track of what I was saying because I think I'm trying to cover too many topics at one time. But nonetheless, I'm just going to go right on to the next book, because the next notebook anyways. I have all these books with titles, and inside the books are all of the lists of the content that we're going to be covering, and there's a lot. So this is Oaty: Ghost Towns, Mysterious Ruins, and Ancient and Abandoned Cities. I wanted to do this because I like this. Dakota said no. Has anyone, my Belizean friend, Zane, he actually, and he'll be in this video. Zane, put yourself in this video somewhere, bro. Say hi to everybody. I don't smoke weed, but they smoke a lot of weed in Belize. Let me tell you, there's a lot of people in Central America that smoke weed. Biggest drawback to traveling Central America, everybody trying to sell you drugs. I don't do drugs. For medicinal purposes, maybe someday I'll need that. I hope I don't, but so far I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs. I don't know what it's like to smoke weed. I don't know what it's like to try anything. I do drink a beer from time to time. I used to drink liquor, but the whole time I was raising my kids, except for with the exception of Carly, I don't think I even drank a beer before. When me and my wife first got married, I'll tell you something. We were drunk the night we met. Went to a bar and went dancing and got more drunk. I was not living the Christian life at that time. 6 months later, we were married. About 2 months after that, we decided to give up drinking. We just decided that drinking is not the way that we wanted to raise our family. And so we just didn't drink for decades and decades and decades. And now, I think every once in a while I'll drink a beer. I got 2 6-packs somewhere. I'm not promoting drinking, by the way, for kids. Not at all. But, yeah, they'll probably still be there in 2 weeks, sitting right where they're at. Maybe we'll have a barbecue or something. The weather's really turning out nice. It's windy. Today was unbelievably windy, and tomorrow's going to be even more windy. My oldest son burnt the yard outside. Like here, you burn your grass in the spring before the rains hit, and you just burn off all the dead grass. And then your yard comes in better. You just get all that dead stuff burnt off. Well, he burnt the yard, and all the yard was black. Today the wind blew, and now the yard is brown. All the ash is gone. Everything, the wind blew really, really hard here. It's going to blow again tomorrow, I think. But I think we have a cool spell coming in, but we're definitely headed into spring weather, and I am so happy about that. I keep changing the subject so many times, so there's so much to talk about. I'm just talking and rambling on. Maybe it's from all those years of working by myself when I talk. I have spoken to a cow, and I have spoken to a rabbit. I have been so far out in southeastern New Mexico, in the northern part of Lee County, going up into parts of Chavez County. I've been so far back out in the middle of nowhere. These ranches, some of these ranches are huge. I've been out on oil field locations, treating wells and stuff, out in the middle of nowhere. And nobody goes back there. And sometimes they don't even pump the wells all the time. They just turn them on once in a while just so they can keep the lease from the government, allows them to keep the lease open in case they decide to drill or do something. So every once in a while you have to go back there, but for the most part no one ever goes back there. There's lots of places like that here. And I had rabbits before come up to me. They have no fear. For whatever reason, there's no coyote out there to chase them around and eat them. But little bunnies, they just don't have fear. I've had this happen a couple of times. Most of the time, rabbits are scared of you. And coyotes, too. I had a coyote walk right up to me. And every once in a while, you get some rabid coyotes. Rabies does go around here. I think mostly probably in skunks, foxes, stuff like that. But there's been a couple instances of rabid coyotes. They're not really afraid of you, and they're very dangerous. There's no cure for rabies, not that I know of. Anyway, but these rabbits they'll walk right up to you and sniff your boot. And I'm pretty sure that I wake up early and come home late for so many years. During that part of my life when my kids were younger, that I would probably go an entire day, maybe more, without ever saying a word out loud, because there's no one to talk to. You go to work and you don't talk to anybody. You just go and do your thing, and then you come home at night and everybody's in bed. You go to bed and get up and do the same thing the next morning. I have no doubt that there's probably hundreds of days in my life where I didn't even talk out loud to myself. But when you see a rabbit walk up to you and you haven't been by yourself for so long, and you talk to the rabbit, I've spoken to animals. I'm not a real big animal fan. I like animals. Here at my house, there's like 1 million cats because Carly is a cat woman. She is a cat lover. Not me. There's like 2 cats out there that I'll pet. I do feed them for her when she's traveling or whenever she's needs us to. Every once in a while she'll abandon all of her pet responsibilities and the family has to pick up the slack. But we have 4 dogs. I don't own a dog. We had a family dog, a Chihuahua. His name was Tiny. He died. I didn't kill him. He got old. And when he passed away, I had no more family pets. None. But right now we have 4 dogs, 500,000 cats. I don't think there's any fish or hamsters or anything like that. And there ain't gonna be either. But nonetheless, we have a pretty big house and some room. I talked to a cow one time. I actually stopped, and the cow was just looking at me, and bulls. But the cow, for whatever reason, just walked over to the truck when I stopped. I walked over to the truck. Quail? I talked to quail. In the summertime, it gets so hot around here that if your vehicle's running, your air conditioner is putting out condensation. The quail will literally, and rabbits, they will come under your truck to get that moisture. They're not afraid. I mean, you can pull out 2 shotguns and they're just like, shoot us, we don't care. I walked past a rabbit one time who was sitting in the shadow of an electrical panel post and one under a mesquite bush. It's so hot here sometimes in the summertime that the rabbits, if they run, they literally bruise and rupture their kidneys and die. And so they'll sit there, and you're going to have to get really, really close to them before they move. But they'll sit there in the prepared to sprint mode, and you can walk up within 2 feet, and as long as they think that their reflexes are going to outdo yours, they won't run. They'll sit right there and just look at you. because it's so hot. And so yeah, I talked to all kinds of different animals, but I'm not really a big animal lover. I guess I was just lonely back then. Don't know how I got off on that. I think we were talking about out of the way places and just getting out in the middle of nowhere type stuff. But anyways, El Paso, I started talking about El Paso earlier. Did you know that there's tunnels under El Paso? Of course there's tunnels under the border because people are always smuggling things, but I'm talking about there's literally oldest neighborhood in El Paso. It's called, don't quote me on this, but I stopped by there. Actually, I got off topic a couple times, didn't I? I was talking about, first I'm going to go back and tie up a couple loose ends. I was talking about visiting my grandkids and stuff in Albuquerque. When I was leaving Daniel, that's my son, and Elizabeth, my daughter, I was leaving visiting them. When I came back, I actually drove down on purpose through Truth or Consequences and past Elephant Butte Lake, just because I have never been through there. And I was watching Bailey Serene's channel on serial killers, and she said New Mexico. And I was like, okay, who's this? And I remember his name is, I think it's David Parker. Serial killer from Elephant Butte, New Mexico. If I'm wrong on his name, I think it's David Parker. We'll be covering him as well because he's a local. But one sick, twisted man, human trafficking, murderer, just a whole, his girlfriend's in on it, his daughter's in on it. You can't trust people. But anyway, so she talked about him. He's known as the, I think it's the Toy Box Killer, is what they titled him. Anyways, tying up that loose end, and then I talked about El Paso and the great restaurants. Now I'm going to tell you, under ancient cities and mysterious ruins, you go to El Paso. I think it's called Sunset Heights. It's an old part of El Paso up on the side of the hill. When I was in the military, I was stationed there for a little while. By the way, my military service is nothing compared to the great men and women who've actually served during combat. I was in during combat. I never went to combat. I joined the Army National Guard when I was in high school. I was 17. I went to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Trained with some amazing people, met some amazing soldiers, drill sergeants. Learned a lot. For a 17-year-old, joining the military, it's a big deal. It's, let me tell you, you learn to get out of bed. I was always pretty active in sports and stuff in high school, and so, but no, it was a good experience for me. And so I went straight from Fort Sill, Oklahoma to El Paso, Texas, and I was stationed there in a place called the Northern Heights. It's, I think it's called the Heights. It's not the Northern Heights. That part of the military base isn't there. I actually drove over there. It's down Dyer Street on the eastern side of the mountain range that goes up there. I think it's the Oregon Mountains. I'm not positive. The mountains that are right there in El Paso. Now they have a pass that goes through. We go through there sometimes when we go over to El Paso. We'll go to Wet and Wild, and that's on the western side of the mountain towards by Anthony, New Mexico, right on the border of New Mexico and Texas. They have a pass that goes through there. Before they put that pass through there, when I was there in training, me and a couple of guys, wherever you guys are at, I remember you. Remember some of your names. We climbed that mountain in downtown El Paso. One of the big urban things is to go up to the towers on top. We climbed that mountain and almost killed ourselves. It was an extremely hot day, big lesson in life. Almost went to jail over it. We got sunburned so bad that we had skin poisoning, and they were considering putting us in the hospital. First lesson about different parts of the desert. We were in amazing shape, the best shape of my life. It was a bad thing that we did, but yeah, no, everything worked out good. I also broke my ankle when I was stationed there. Crazy place. It's called the Logan Heights. Pretty sure it's called the Logan Heights. It was a part of the base that was there. I don't think it's there now. It was. We went there for air defense artillery. This is right in like the end of 1989. This is the beginning of 1990, I believe. They were just preparing for the Gulf War with Saddam Hussein, and all the equipment that they flew over was coming in through El Paso, hitting Biggs Airfield and being shipped out. Had going to do a guard duty one night, and our drill sergeant actually was a pretty cool guy. Didn't think so at the time, but he took us down and he showed us the enormous amount of firepower that was coming in on by rail into that place, and them yards were full. Anyways, we were on guard duty down there one night, and he stopped and he said, "There's going to be a war, boys." We didn't believe him. Didn't even understand what that was. Come on, I was with the Vietnam War ending in 1973. I was a year old, and so other than my dad, and he was in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. He didn't go to Vietnam, but his friends and growing up around those people. Other than that, I didn't know a whole lot about war. It was right after Reaganomics, and the Reagan administration was coming in. He had just taken over from Jimmy Carter, and there were enormous oil field booms. The economy was doing really good, and so I don't think there's really a reason, I guess, but I didn't really know that much about war. And when our drill sergeant took us down that night, he goes, "This stuff's going overseas." He said, "There's going to be a war." And in fact, his name was Drill Sergeant Brown. This dude was hard. It was all through AI basic training. And I thought, okay, we're doing a lot of running, we're doing a lot of exercise, and we're always going to push it, we're tired all the time. I couldn't wait to get out of basic training and get over to El Paso for AIT, where we might even get a weekend pass, or get to go do some stuff. I was always in trouble, so I didn't get a weekend pass. In fact, I think I might have got two the whole time I was there. But air defense artillery, we shot down airplanes. That was our job, and it was phased out right after I left. But I was trained on my MOS was a 16 pop-up. We were Chaparral crew members. It's kind of ironic because the Chaparral's a New Mexico state bird. But no, basically it's a track with 12 missiles, heat-seeking missiles, and so it's got a turret on top. It's got 4 missiles. That was my job, which was actually on its way out. The technology was getting old when I was there. They had just came out with the Scud missile, and one of the guys I trained with in El Paso's name was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. His name was Glover. He was a pretty cool guy. Well, he got to train on the Patriot missile when they first came out with the Patriot missile, and I got to talk to him. We had seen him out at the range. We were out at the White Sands missile range, but it's McGregor range. I know the White Sands missile range and McGregor range. Tiburon, New Mexico borders on McGregor range. It's a pretty big part of the desert that's set aside for the military out there, and most people have heard about White Sands. Huge. But we were out there, and so Glover was telling me about the Patriot missile, and by then it wasn't, I don't say top secret type stuff, but it was new, and they were experimenting. They sent it over to shoot down airplanes in the Middle East during the Gulf War, and they ended up shooting down Saddam's Scud missiles, a missile to shoot down another missile. So that was a pretty big deal. And then they had the Vulcan was there, and then the Red Eye Stinger, that was coming out at the time. That was a pretty nice little. That's very entertaining to watch when they shoot off a bat, which is like basically a rocket. And then when the rocket's going, well, you use a missile to shoot down the rocket. And so that was pretty interesting stuff going on while I was there. And but no, I was in the Army National Guard program. I had signed up I had scored high enough on the ASVAB test that they let me in. I'm not a genius, but I scored high enough on the ASVAB test. I'll tell that story sometime. It's kind of a deal. But so I decided I wouldn't do anything else in my life. I had dropped out of high school at the time. I was dropped out my senior year and decided I'm going to go to work on the drilling. So I lied about my age, went to work on the drilling rigs, just started hanging out, partying, didn't really have anything going on, and making really good money until they found out you're underage. So they sent me a paycheck and said, "We don't ever want to see you again." And I was like, okay, fine. So back then, to get a job in the oil rig, you just go down and take your name and you hang it up in the local laundry. Because the oil field guys who worked on the rigs, the drilling rigs, like back then, ain't like now. You go to a drilling rig now, you may even find 100 people on location living there, working there. It's a big operation. Back then, if everybody showed up for work on time, they weren't sober or on drugs. Most people did drugs. Then you might have a 4-man crew for a 12-hour shift. If it was an 8-hour shift, you'd like evening tower, morning tower, and daylights. You would work different things. But for the most part, it was kind of like the Wild West type of deal, but you can make a lot of money, really good money working on drilling rigs. So I just went down and hung my name up as, that I had experience doing this. I knew a lot about the rigs from growing up with around my dad working on them, and so I had a pretty good idea about it. So I just went down and lied about my age, just put my name up and said, hey, I'm a derrick man. I eventually became a derrick man, but I didn't even know what a derrick man done. So I showed up, and basically they put me to work, and you got to have pretty thick skin to go out there. They'll hurt your feelings, basically, especially if they find out that you don't know what you're doing. And so, but hey, they got to have a hand. So I went out and I put my name up as I know I'm all over the map. I put my name up on the wall. They have a bulletin board in the local laundromat. That's where you go to wash your greasers. Greasers are your clothes that you get from the oil field because you don't want to take them home and wash them in your wife's laundry. She will shoot you. You can't even go home at my house. My dad couldn't. You don't come home and go in the house with your work clothes on. That just didn't happen. And it's not that we had a really beautiful house or anything. You just don't go in the house with the oil field clothes on. There's been several times my wife would make me strip outside. She's like, no, mister, get it off. And then you come in after you take your clothes off. You don't wash them there. So you go down, and when you're there, the oil field people go to the laundromat to wash their clothes. Well, if they need a hand, the thing would be to pin up your name, a piece of paper with your name on it, and they would just tear off your number. And then in the event that somebody twisted off, which was like every single day, somebody didn't show up for work, well, they would just give you a call and say, hey, you ready to go to work? They would tell you, we're picking you up. So you always had a lunch packed, and you always had your clothes ready so you could catch out. You make more money as a catch out hand than actually being on a crew because so many people twisted off. They're always needing somebody. Well, I just went down when they fired me. I went down and put my name up on the bulletin board again. And I was still getting calls from people even after they found out, like, hey, kid, it's like, we know you're not supposed to be out here, but we need somebody. And I was like, well, come on, I'll go. And they would have to pay you because you work. They don't want to get sued. But they didn't have very good screening, and things were a lot different back then. Nowadays, illegal aliens, they call them illegal aliens, immigrants, whatever you want to call them. It's really hard for companies to use those people because of the way things are. And underage people. Man, I grew up, my uncle owned a roustabout company when I was 14 years old. I had my first real man's job when I was 14 years old, working for a Basin Lease, Roustabouts Welding. What was the name of it? It was Basin Lease Service, Roustabouts Welding and Backhoe. My uncle owned the company here in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And me and my cousin worked for him in the summer. We were 14. You go try to get an oil field job now, you're 14. You can't even get in a training class. You can't even take a first aid class to work in the oil field when you're 14. It's just unheard of. But that was in the summer. And it was a family-owned business, so we managed to get away with it, and we got paid. And that's what got me hooked on the oil field stuff. And so I thought, man, I'm going to make so much money. You know, the oil field people making, it's crazy. In some situations, 4 times what my school teachers were making. It's like, why would I want to sit here and do this boring stuff? Come on. We want to go out and do Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn type of stuff. So I'd go to work on the rigs and I got money. Well, I decided that wasn't right. My dad was talking some sense to me. He was like, boy, you need to get back in school. And so I scored high enough on the ASVAB that I decided, hey, I'm going to go join the Army. And they said, we'll let you in. The recruiter was all happy to see me. He's like, hey, bro, come on, let's talk. And so he said, listen, we have a program. And he said, we can get you into the military. And I was like, well, I was out for an adventure. I didn't want to go back to school. And he said, on the grounds that you'll sign a piece of paper saying that you'll go back and finish high school because you're only 17. So I did. I signed the paper. I went down to El Paso. I went to the MEP station. I got checked out, and they said, yeah, you're not broken. Come on, you can get in. I swore in. It was actually a buddy of mine's idea who's actually retired from the military today, but at the time, the guy's dumb as a rock. Not dumb, but I'd say not educated. I think he scored like a 13 on the ASVAB when he first started. A 13 is really bad. I had an 88. I had a friend who had a 99. He's kind of a genius. But I scored an 88, and they said that was a good score. I was like, well, I didn't know what the ASVAB was, but at the time, my friend said, hey, we can sign up on the buddy system and we can go through together, because he dropped out in the 9th grade. He's just running around living life on mom and daddy's dime. A little bit different than my situation, but nonetheless, he said, we can sign up for the Army. Let's go in the Army. Let's do something with our lives. And I was like, okay, let's go. And I went to El Paso and went through the MEP station, swore in, got back home, and I was like, so, hey, how did it go? with your ASVAB testing? And he said, I failed. And I was like, well, we signed up on the buddy system. I already swore in. And I said, you're going to go retake the test, right? And he said, yeah, I'm going to go retake it right now. And I called the recruiter, and the recruiter said, your friend's dumb as a rock. He's not getting in. He needs to go back to school. So what happened was, 2 days later-ish, my buddy called me and he said, I'm not going to retake the ASVAB. I already swore in, dude. You don't get out of a contract with the government. It doesn't happen. So a couple months later, I shipped off the basic training, and my friend just continued to party. He ended up moping around town and doing odd jobs, working Long John Silver's type of stuff for the next several years, and then he ended up going to get his GED. He got into college, got some stuff, and then he went in as an officer into the military because he had college type of stuff. Not an officer, but a higher rank. I think he went in like an E4, somewhere in there. It was much higher than what I ever got to. And so I went to the training. I decided the military wasn't for me. I finished my training in El Paso. When I got out of AIT, I came back. National Guard, you do 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year, basically training. Well, our unit, we were, when the war and stuff happened, it really got stepped up. But I'll tell you, the given all of that, I could say my friend duped me into going in on the thing, but that's not the truth. I found out that if there ever was a war, and you got to remember, when we were teenage boys, we would like Arnold Schwarzenegger Commando, and then Predator. Remember Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger as well? And so I think there was a movie, Remo Williams. I don't remember when that came out, but they had all these movies. So what other movies? Full Metal Jacket, and then so we were teenage boys, and you think about war, and you think about all of this. They romanticize it. They make it look really, really big, and so you go out and you do the whole thing. And so I didn't know much about. You had the old Vietnam movies, and then there was Clint Eastwood, and we're still around. We're not that old, but we're old enough to remember all of the. What was his name? Marion Morrison. What was his name? John Wayne movies and Clint Eastwood movies. The Hamburger. We remembered all of those movies, right? And so they kind of glorified battle, and so it's something you're interested in. But the truth is, I didn't know that much about war. The Vietnam War had ended a year after I was born, and so there goes the economy and all that. I'm not going to get back on that stuff again. But here's the deal. The number one reason why I signed up is because the recruiter explained to me that. Well, let me back up just a little bit. There was a family who owned a tortilla factory in the town where I lived. I actually worked there for a while. It's called La Poblanita, and it was owned by an amazing family of Mexicans, and the man's name was Trujillo. It was the Trujillo family. David Trujillo was a guy who was a couple years older than me in school. Actually, he was as old as my oldest sister, and he dated a girl, one of my sister's friends, one of my friends. And David was in the Guard, and his brothers were in the Guard. His dad, everybody was in the Guard in his family. Everybody was a soldier. And heard stories and stuff, not really glorifying, but talking about when they would go out on trainings and stuff, they never flew on the same plane because if one of the brothers, if something was to happen, they don't want siblings, you don't want two brothers going down on the same plane. You don't want two people dying, so they keep them separated. Well, along those lines, the discussion came up somehow, and I don't know how it was, but the recruiter explained to me that in the event that there was a war, and I was already serving, my brother would not be drafted. My brother couldn't be sent to war because he was the only other thing. And I thought, well, that would be really cool if I could join the military and serve, and then my brother would never be at risk to go in. My brother never. I didn't discuss this with him until, if I ever did, it was years later. But no one ever really knew the real reason why I signed up. And the real reason why, it wasn't because my friend talked me into it. When I found out that I could go to war, and my little brother would never have to go see any of the things that I didn't know about war, then why not? I wasn't doing anything else with my life, and so I did. I actually went over to the Met station and all, and I'm not surprised that my friend let me down on the buddy system. We didn't go in. So I shipped out. I went to the military, wound up in El Paso a little while later, and on that same mountain. I didn't know that while I was training there in the Logan Heights, while we were out doing runs in the morning and stuff, I didn't know that just down the road, a couple miles, there was actually an old neighborhood called, I think it's the Sunset Heights, where there were literally underground tunnels. We went there here not long ago, me and my daughter Carly, because she likes that kind of stuff. We actually went to this house. It's called, you can Google it. You can find it, might be on Reddit, but you can probably Google it on the internet, I think, I'm pretty sure. That's how we found it. It's called the Turtle House. There's a building in El Paso, Texas. And on the side, by the way, it's a private building. People live there. Don't make the mistake I did. I thought it was a real estate agency. So me and Carly went over there, right? And there's this guy out, this little cholo out there washing his beautiful little lowrider car. He had a great Impala, by the way, and looked sharp. He was out there polishing his car. We pulled up and was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Is this the Turtle House?" And he said, "It's the Turtle House." And I was like, "Oh." And I said, "Where is it?" And he said, "It's right there." He said, "Just walk down the alley and you'll see the turtles on the wall." I thought it was a real estate agency. I thought it was a business. It is an apartment. It's residence. And so we walked down the alley and we were looking through the bin on the street. And he went back there and he said, "Just go back there. You'll see a steel plate on the thing." He said, "That's access." He said, "It's locked up. You can't get in," which you can't. But I was standing on someone's back porch looking kind of at like how we could get down on the side of the building in the alleyway. There was a grating so we could see some stuff that we'd seen on the internet by looking down. If someone was snooping around my back porch looking for a way to get in, I'm probably going to thump them in the head. Certainly ask them what they were doing. But just so you'll know, if you find the place and you decide to go over and look at it, be careful because people live there. It is in a public alleyway, but people do live there. Yeah, so I didn't know that at the time. But anyways, tons of ghost towns, all kinds of stuff. Underground cities in Turkey, the Mayan ruins down in Belize, Guatemala, Mexico. They just discovered with LIDAR. The Mayan Empire was far bigger than they ever thought it was. When we were in Belize, we went over to see some of the Mayan ruins. We went to one in particular called Alton Hall. When we were at Alton Hall, it's a couple miles from the Caribbean coast. When we were leaving that place, it's just a beautiful place, by the way, to stand on top of a Mayan temple and look over the top of the rainforest, and all you can pretty much see is trees as far as you can see. And it's quiet. It's peaceful. The rainforest is an amazing place. I love the rainforest. But when we were leaving that place, our tour guide, we were actually staying out on an island called Key Calker, right? It's out there by Ambergris Key, and there's lots of different keys. I think there's 350 different islands in Belize and they have the second largest barrier reef in the world. I think, I'm not for sure, but certainly it's right up there. If it's not, it's one of the biggest barrier reefs in the world. So we took a tour. We actually caught a taxi in. I don't know how long it's 30 minutes. I don't know how many miles it is from Belize City, but we actually went from Key Calker into Belize City because we spent our whole time out on the island doing the snorkeling at the reef and stuff, those kinds of trips. We went in, and there was a cave tube where you enter tube where a river's running through a mountain. You go through the caves and stuff. We went there too. I didn't do this. I was watching Mary. I got to watch Mary while my girls had fun. No, I had more fun watching Mary. But when we went to Alton Hall, when we were leaving Alton Hall, our tour guide was driving through the jungle. And I told the guy, because he lives in Ladyville. He lives right outside of Belize. He lives in Ladyville. Belizean people, there's some amazing Belizean people. And when we were driving out of the jungle, I told him, I said, these are ruins. I looked over and I saw these hills, these mounds, and I told him, those are pyramids, those are structures. And he said, yes, but you can't go there. And I was trying to figure out what he meant at first. Those are people's backyards. And when they used LIDAR to map the rainforest floor of Guatemala and Mexico and Belize, they discovered that the Mayan ruins were the Mayan Empire was much, much larger than what they ever anticipated. And I'm like, well, I'm not surprised. There's a place not far from a city in southern Belize, right on the near the Guatemalan-Mexican border, called in that area. It's called San Ignacio, I believe. And just outside of San Ignacio, there's a guy who just a Belizean. I've been Guatemalan. No, he's Belizean. No, he's Belizean. But he's out in the rainforest on his house one day, and he left his house and was walking out into the jungle by his backyard, and his dogs disappeared into a bush. And he went looking for them. Well, inside the bush was a little bitty hole. You can go see this documentary on the internet somewhere, but you can go on Google Maps and see the place there by San Ignacio. It's on the border, and it's an archaeological dig. But what it is, they found this. It's basically an underground city under the guy's house and under the ruins, and they had some of the oldest Mayan mummies and stuff there. Sacrifices, it's creepy, but nonetheless, they went down, and it's a whole other place under there. So, anyways, Oaty ghost towns, abandoned and ancient cities and mysterious ruins got absorbed by Oaty box of chocolates because there's just so much to talk about. I'm going to take a brief intermission here. I'll be back. Zane, you're going to have to edit this out, buddy. I got to go pee. All right, so I am back. Had to take a little break there for a second. All right, so besides all of those, there's a lot of other places that I'd like to talk about. One of the reasons why we went ahead and moved Oaty Ghost Towns over to Oaty Box of Chocolates, because there's some places and things that didn't really fit into any of those categories, and I'm kind of glad it's on Box of Chocolates now, because there's some places like a place up here in the mountains, in the Guadalupe Mountains, a lot of mysteries up there and stuff. Places that I would like to talk about that I've been to, that I've seen, that didn't really fit into any of that, like cave that I can't find today that I was at when I was a kid. A symbol that's carved in a rock up on a mountainside, that in a cliff, in a bluff. I don't know if it's put there by Indians or conquistadors, because it's not a painting, it's an etching. But there was a tree there at one time when I was younger, and I remember being there. I think about half the guys most of the guys that I grew up with now, these days, they're either dead or in prison. So, one or two guys that were there, we don't really talk anymore these days. So I think I'm probably the only person that knows where this place is at. But there was a cave. We were coming down along this cliff, walking along the bottom of this cliff, and it's behind a tree. This is in the foothills. These are big mountains, but there's not any trees on them, mostly shrubs and cactus. And I remember walking along the base of this cliff, and I looked up and I saw this pentagram. It's etched in stone. I know where it's at today. I've been there. And I remember walking behind a tree was glowing. The tree's no longer there. And it was a big tree. And we had walked but behind the tree, went up by the bluff, and we went around a corner, and there was a cave. And I remember me and my friend Chris. He doesn't talk to me anymore. Still alive. Actually, he's met two of these guys that are still alive. They're pretty messed up from the war. They don't really socialize. They got some mental problems. I stay away from them. One of them just stopped talking to me and stopped being friends for whatever reason, and the other one, I'm afraid to have him around my family. So he's not really stable guy. Nice guy, but he had Gulf War syndrome from the very first war that we had discussed, and it was really crazy too because he's in the military, in the Marine Corps. He's going to school to be a lawyer. Wound up over in Iraq eventually, and got some chemical warfare. It's really messed him up. Anyways, he's not the same now, and he has these moments of. I'll give you an example. The last time he was down, I say the last time he was down, we didn't see each other for years. The only time he really came down to visit, a couple of us got together, was down at the river, spending the days, doing some fishing. I thought that night, hey, let's go watch a movie. My family was out of town. They were actually, my wife's visiting her family all in Texas, and the rest of the kids were off at a summer camp, and I just had time off from work. I told him, let's go catch a movie, man. Let's go to the theater. He hadn't been to a theater in years. We went down to the theater. We came back, and we sat in the living room, and he asked me if I could see them. He had a name for it. I don't know what the name for it was. It was some kind of Muslim name, or I say is Arabic maybe. But anyways, it was. He learned some of the Middle Eastern language there. I don't know what they speak, but Arabic, I guess. But he had a name for it, and he was trying to explain it's like a portal. And we were sitting there in the living room, and he asked me. He said, "Can you see that?" And I was like, "His name's Donnie." I told him, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." I thought he was talking about something on like in the room we didn't have the TV. We didn't really watch TV much, but I told him I don't see anything. He says it's right there, and he said I don't know. He said you don't see it. He said I can't. I talked to other people. He said you can't see it. He said there's just something wrong with y'all. He said I didn't used to see them, but I can see them now. He said ever since the war, he said I can see them, and he said they're here. That kind of stuff. And then he went back home. He lives in Louisiana. He went back to his house, and he went off on me on Facebook one day. And another friend, he's like, "Hey, it's Clint, it's a buddy of mine." And he said, what was Donnie talking about?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "He was doing kind of weird stuff." And when he was down visiting, we told him, I said, "You say some really weird stuff on Facebook sometimes, man." And he said, "No, I was just trying to get used to it." And the other guy kept him in check because we're kind of like honest that way, keep it real type of stuff. And he said, "No, you say some pretty strange stuff sometimes, and it's just disturbing, and we're just trying to find out where it's coming from." Well, anyways, he had done that to me right after he had gone back home from visiting here, and I unfollowed him, I unfriended him, and I just don't need unstable people around my family. I wish him the best. Anyways, he, along with another guy who actually does have some psychological problems and was very close. We were very close growing up. I only had a couple of really good friends growing up, and his family treated me like family. My family treated his family like family, and we did some traveling and stuff together. For whatever reason, he unfriended me. He stayed friends with my wife on Facebook. My wife's like, "He didn't unfriend me," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I said something that offended him, or maybe Donnie had gone back and said something to them." I'm so glad I never went to war. I'm so glad that I never seen any of those things that my friends had to go through. And that's one of the reasons why I just hold a really high esteem for people who've gone out and served so that we can live free, or at least have the opportunity to think that we do. I know things are changing very quickly, but nonetheless, my gratitude to those people is there. But anyways, he unfriended me, and I didn't go back and try to find out why. He unfriended my brother at the same time, and We have no clue why, but both of those men have issues, and they don't live anywhere close to us. One of them lives. Actually, I think they both live in Louisiana now, but I wish them the best. Sorry their life is that way. Yeah. Anyways, getting a little off of topic. I can't. Oh, okay. I was going back. I had got off topic because I was talking about these two guys. Chris is one, and Donnie's the other. They were actually with me when we were teenagers, and Anthony, another guy, Anthony was with us, and a couple other guys that aren't alive anymore. But we were all there together, and everybody's seen this. Some of the guys didn't want to mess with it, and they went on down. Well, me and Chris stood at the entrance of this cave, and Donnie was on up the hill a little ways. He was a little slower coming down. I didn't go all the way up. I got around this cliff, and I was exploring around this cliff area, and these guys went on up to the top of the mountain, stuck some yucca sticks up on the top, the staffs, kind of like just making their mark, I guess. They went to the top, climbed the top of the mountain, and they just coming back down. And most of them just ran on by, but Chris was there, and Donnie. And I remember standing there with Chris, looking into this cave. This cave was, I've heard of stories like this, and over around Arizona, Superstitious Mountains, and then south of Arizona. I've heard stories of people who, and there's lots of in Indian lore about these places. David Paulides, by the way, who has Can-Am Missing Project, David Paulides is one of my favorite authors also as well. And you ever get a chance, he does like America 411 and the amount of people that go missing in our national parks. Just, he puts out really good content, unbiased content. He reports the facts. So, but anyways, and these types of scenarios, I'm still looking for this cave, because what I go up there and see now is not what we saw when we were kids. But I had other stories of the cave entrance was very similar to this. Like at the bottom of my elbows, it was kind of just cone shaped at the top. But when me and Chris stood at the entrance of that cave, there was I believe it was a pine tree growing up in the front of it. But we stood there, and I remember looking into the cave, and only being, because it was so dark, and the desert was bright. This is like noon. This is midday when we're out running around these mountains. And by the way, these mountains are right near a state park called Sitting Bull Falls, if you've ever been in that part of the Guadalupe Mountains. If not, you can look it up online. You can see the falls. You can see different stuff. But this is in that vicinity, in that part of the mountains. And I remember standing there and looking in, and I told Chris, I said, "Do you want to go in? Let's go in." And he's like, "We can't really see in there." But there were some bones, like there was a predator there of some kind. I'm guessing maybe an owl, or maybe I would say at most a mountain lion would be like the only thing that we'd find in that cave. And so we decided, because we didn't have a flashlight with us. It was a Boy Scout camp, so great. We were great. We were well prepared, right? Boy Scout motto: be prepared. Middle of the day, we didn't have our flashlight with us. We might have had a pocket knife at best. Nonetheless, we decided not to go into the cave because it was dark and we could only see about 10 feet in. We could see the walls of the cave going back, the wall going back about 10, and it was fairly narrow. We could have walked in sideways, maybe like this, and got through our shoulders. And when I go back there now, and I look up and see and identify the pentagram etched into the stone in the cliff, and then I go to the only thing around there that even remotely resembles a cave. It's just like a little cropping. It doesn't exist. It's not there. So unless there's another cliff in the same vicinity with another pentagram, I would need a drone to go up there and fly it around now to just look to see if I can find the cave. It doesn't exist. It's not there. This is not a Mandela effect where we'll discuss the Mandela effect on Bizarre, Strange, and Weird. But basically, the Mandela effect is where you remember something. It's not a false memory. It's a remembered memory. Mandela effect is where you remember things differently than what they actually are. So Chris, for example, the friend I'm just talking about, right? His little sister. She had an awards assembly at the junior high school where we all went. Now Sarah was much younger, and so when we went, I was back in town, and they told me, "Hey, Sarah's got an awards assembly at the junior high tonight. Would you like to come with us?" And because the family was great and Sarah was like a sister, I said, "Oh, I'd love to go." And so I went to the awards assembly, and after the awards assembly, they had like an open house where you could go over and walk through the school and meet the teachers, and the parents could see the teachers and talk about their students and all this stuff. So what we did was we went over and we walked through the halls, the main halls of the junior high. And when I walked through the halls of that junior high as a grown man, I hadn't been back there since I was a teenager. I felt like I'd reach out with both hands and touch the walls and the ceiling. The halls seemed that small. They weren't how I remembered them. I remembered they had the bottom locker, the top locker, and I remember I had a top locker. I remember exactly where it was at. I don't remember the number now, but I dream about stuff like that every once in a while. But I remember when I was there as a teenager, as a kid in the 8th grade, 9th grade, touching the top of the locker would have been a feat, so when I go back and everything seems so small and claustrophobic and the hall seems so short and the doors seem so small and the rooms are not as big as I remember them, that's kind of like the Mandela effect. This thing with the cave, that's not what this was. I stood there as a grown man, and I would have been able to walk in that cave that me and Chris stood there and looked into. I would have been able to walk into it. I'm talking about as a grown man sideways. As a little teenage boy, I could have probably just walked right into the cave without ducking. And I could see back 10 feet. There's nothing like that there now. And so maybe someday I'll find it, maybe I won't, but I don't know what changed. But so those are some of the places that don't really fit into the Oaty ghost towns and abandoned cities and ancient ruins. That kind of stuff that I want to talk about. There's not in there. Moving right along. This one is going to be a channel. I love cryptids. Oaty cryptids. Werewolves, dogmen, all of these things that I used to think would never exist and don't exist, and where do they come from? What are they doing here? It's like the world is shrinking because of cryptids. Cryptids are basically animals that are reported to exist that aren't supposed to. That's what a cryptid is, an unknown animal. It's like cryptozoology. And so I love cryptozoology. So you'll say, even in the scriptures in the Bible, it talks about cryptids. So David's Mighty Men, you remember the movie 300? With the Spartans and all of that? Well, King David in the Bible actually had some, and he himself was a super type of soldier, and yeah, so it talks about one of his mighty men. If you want to go read about his mighty men, just look up David's mighty men in the scriptures. You'll find it there. First Kings, Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, somewhere in there. It's listed actually. They give a list of all of his mighty men. Let's see, like Joab, his 2 brothers, Ahaziel. These men were like human army tanks. They done some amazing things in battle. Hands down, they were like ninjas, barbarians, Scythians, Viking, all rolled into one. These men were amazing combatants. One of them is recorded as going down into a pit and slaying a lion. At one point is recorded as killing 2. Now Moab was a place in the Bible where Naomi went with her husband and her 2 sons. Her husband died, and then her 2 sons, Achilion and Mahlon, they died after taking wives in Moab. There ain't no bread in Moab, right? So they left, and one of them took a wife, the Moabitess Ruth, and the other one was Orpah. Well, after her sons died, Naomi came back to Israel. Well, when it's so that's where the story takes place. But Moab was a country, and David, one of David's mighty men, was recorded in Scripture as killing 2 lion-like men of Moab. Is that cryptozoology at its best, or what? Part lion, part human? This comes from the mixing of DNA way back in the day, and I know there's a lot of people who don't understand that, but let me explain something to you. When you're studying the Scripture, there are in the Scripture what we would consider cryptids. But all that aside, when you're reading the Bible, there's the way things that we wish things were, and then there's actually what God said. So there is the God that we want and the God who really is, just like the song. And then there's the Bible that we want, and then there's the Bible that really is. So yeah, cryptids, I'm fascinated by all of the creatures on Earth, living and past. It's very interesting stuff. I find DNA in and of itself, I find DNA to be very interesting all by itself. All right, so cryptids, definitely going to be a YouTube channel as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot of content for it, and I love to talk about that. And one of the things I hope to get out of this, as much as anybody covering all these different channels, is learning. Oaty cessation, simply about quitting smoking. I hope to be an encouragement to some people and share some things that could help. And so I'll be making a quit smoking video, YouTube video, and covering all kinds of different things. But this is absorbed. This is going to go into Oaty box of chocolates. Yep, the one-armed Twinkie used to smoke. Not anymore. One of the best decisions of my life was the choice to not be a slave to tobacco anymore. So Oaty quit smoking is going to be one long video put on a playlist, broken up into watchable links as well, so somebody can watch a 10-minute video and a 10-minute video and a 10-minute video, or they can watch the whole thing all at once. Whatever everybody's interested in. But if anybody's looking to quit smoking, I can tell you, it can be done. It is worth doing, but there's a lot of things that people do not tell you about quit smoking when they're out looking for quit smoking. So I'm going to tell you basically what they won't tell you about quit smoking, that I know about it, that I've done it. And I smoked, one time I smoked 4 cigarette packs in a 24-hour period. One day I was hauling for a company called Blank Drilling Mud. I was hauling drilling mud, bulk drilling mud to the drilling rigs. And one time I went to this, let me explain. There is 168 hours in a week, 7 24-hour periods. I went to work at this company one time, and several different companies like this. I punched in, and when I clocked out, keep in mind, this isn't a live-on location type of a drilling job now where you have a house and stuff. I was in the cab of a truck without a sleeper and 2 swampers. We punched in, and it was almost 5 days later when I punched out. Hardly any sleep at all. It's amazing I was a very irresponsible driver over the years, just doing what it takes to get the job done, doing what it takes to survive. Just to have a job out here is, in some means, can be survival. I would just drive, and then I would pull over where I would pull over and sleep, and then wake up and go again. It was a terrible, 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 terrible job. I smoked 4 packs of cigarettes in one day because a cigarette, when you're driving, will wake you up. When you get that hit of nicotine and you smoke that cigarette, you're probably good. At the time, I was so bad off that it would wake me up for probably between 4 and 6 minutes. And then I'd do another one and another one. Just nicotine, just a regular Marlboro, the Camels, whatever I was smoking back then. Um, Trash. Every bit of it's trash. Um, yeah, so that's why I would like to make the cessation channel, and I decided that the channel's not good enough. It needs to be, the content would be better off under Oaty Box of Chocolates, because I may add from time to time to it, and I don't want to have to go back and maintain, but it could be on the playlist. If you're smoking and you want to quit, it's worth it, and you can do it. And it might not be as hard as you think, and it might be a lot harder than what you think. It all depends on how things work. So, Oaty cessation, absorbed into Oaty Box of Chocolates. Oaty Kids World. I am looking forward to making this YouTube channel. It's got blue on blue. Oaty Kids World. So basically, I'm going to be wearing that big fat globe on my head right here. And behind me, this slides out of the way. And I'm going to pull down a big world map. Rolls down. And so basically, I'm going to be wearing a shirt that's made out of a globe as well, and blue hands. I'm going to be talking about all the places in the world, amazing places in the world. There are just so many amazing places in the world that people just don't know about. And I want to make it learning about our world fun for kids. Every kind of place in the world. So I'm really looking forward to that. I probably have more content for Oaty Kids World than any other channel except for the Bible Stories channel and the Bible Shorts videos. Other than that, there's Oaty Kids World. I am so looking forward because there are so many places that you can go to and see and talk about. You know, I'll tell you, kids just, there's so much out there to see, and people just don't know. People just don't know. It's this world we live in is huge, and it has so much to offer, more than we can ever see in 10 lifetimes. And there are some really cool places to see. And hopefully, through working with Oaty Kids World, I'll be able to inspire kids to have dreams and to think about places. When I was growing up as a kid, I was fascinated with marine biology. I was fascinated with the ocean. It's one of the reasons why I just loved, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, and was down while we were in Belize. We went out to the reef. I told you we stayed on an island, and we went out to the water was so clear. It's just, it's amazing. As we were driving, we were going across the water towards out to the reef, which was pretty good ways. We had a good ways to go in the boat as the boat was moving across the water. I could look down and I could see Moana. You know the Disney movie Moana? I think it's Disney. Anyways, Moana, that type of cool stuff. When we were as the boat was good, the water's 20 feet, 30 feet maybe. I could see rays going across the bottom of the water. We seen some squid laying there on the bottom together. We seen sharks, turtles, jellyfish. We seen everything. There's not much that we didn't see. Coral like nobody's business. And it was almost like the water didn't even exist because it was so clear. You know, you see the Grecian waters, and you can go to Greece and take tours of the water. I challenge you, if you haven't seen them, in some places in Thailand, Philippines, there's an amazing amount of stuff out there. So we go to the Philippines. It's what? I don't know, 7,000 islands? Indonesia, 18,000 islands? Japan, 7,000 islands, 6,000 islands? There's 7,000 islands in the Caribbean alone, ish. There are so many places that kids haven't seen, but if you go to Greece, or you go Google it, you'll be able to find images of boats. If you haven't seen these before, they're amazing. Boats that are setting in the water, and the water is so clear that in the photograph, and probably even more so in real life, the boat looks like it's floating in midair. Places like that, I want to inspire and spur children to use their mind and go and do great things, because life doesn't have to be small. It really doesn't. And if we can free their mind, what else can enslave a child if their mind is free? I don't know of what else could enslave a person. You know, one of my favorite movies is not for children to watch, I don't guess, but Shawshank Redemption is actually based off of a book by Stephen King. I read some of Stephen King's books. I used to read Dean Koontz and read some John Grisham books, actually. Found them pretty interesting, but Stephen King kind of, dude's kind of twisted. And it's, now that I'm grown, his crap's really not that scary. His books just, I don't find them entertaining anymore. Same with Koontz. I actually kind of like Koontz better than, when I was reading horror, better than Stephen King. I stopped reading Stephen King for that reason, kind of, but I read a lot of his books. I don't read them. I won't be doing any reviews on any of those guys. Maybe John Grisham. I don't know. But Stephen King wrote a book, and there's a movie based off it called Shawshank Redemption. And in that book, the main character played by is in the movie, his character's name was Andy Dufresne. He played a leading role alongside of Morgan Freeman, who was playing a character named Red. Tim? Nope. His name's not coming to me. Almost said Tim Burton, but that's a sicko who made A Nightmare Before Christmas, right? His stuff's kind of dark, too. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I think his name's Tim. And I should be able to remember his name. But anyways, he says something in the movie making a reference to hope. And when he gets locked up in the dungeon of the prison, he goes down into the place called the Hole, where he did a month in the hole for playing music, and then he said something that set Morgan Freeman off, and he's talking about hope, and he said, "What are you talking about, hope?" And he said, "Hope's a dangerous thing, my friend." That's what he told him. Hope's a dangerous thing. And he just makes a reference to music and having something on the inside that the outside world can't touch. To me, that's a lot like my belief system, my faith. And I'm not down on anyone else's faith. I believe in free will. If someone wants to be a Muslim, be a Muslim. But know why. If someone wants to be any other denomination, in the whole wide world, if you want to worship whatever you want, I believe people should do what they I don't know exactly how to phrase what I want to say. I'm not out to offend anybody. I don't want anybody interfering with what I believe and my right to believe what I believe. But not everybody's for that. So if someone wants to be a Catholic, they should be a Catholic. If someone wants to be a Christian, they should be a Christian. And that's how I feel about what he said. And that's something that I would like to be able to help children to realize when they're through Oaty Kids World. It's just how big this place is, and it was created and put here for them. In fact, it was created and put here in a far better way than what we're living. We're living in a fallen and fractured society, and yet there's amazing places. One of my favorite things to do, that I do almost every single morning when I'm waiting for my son-in-law to drop off Mary. Mary gets here about sunrise. Or my daughter, whoever's dropping her off. It depends on what the schedule is. I live in a very old house, and it's two-story. The upstory faces the east side. My bedroom has a window in it, and it faces to the east. And I might just put up some of the sunrise pictures. I might show you some of the sunrise photos on here. I might talk about that sometime. Probably, most certainly will. It's one of my favorite times of day. I usually watch the sunrise and sunset. I'm usually up at those times. But I said, and I watched the sunrise to the east, and there are some amazing sunrises and sunsets. And just one of my favorite times. I usually have a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise while I'm waiting on Mary to get here. And then she loves pancakes. We make pancakes if she stays up. But this world, whether it's fallen or not, or what anybody believes about it, there's some amazing things for kids to see. And the truth of the matter is, this day and age, kids grow up, some of my grandkids included, they literally are being raised like this. They have no idea about what life is like because they're growing up looking at a TV screen. I don't say there's anything wrong with letting a kid watch a cartoon if you're on a 4-hour trip in a car. When we were vacationing and stuff with our kids growing up, we put TVs on the back seat in the Suburban. We would have TVs hanging, and we would all watch Star Wars while we drove down to Corpus Christi, Texas, because you can binge watch Star Wars driving from where we lived to Corpus Christi, Texas, or Lonesome Dove, or we just did all kinds of things like that, but not as a babysitter. I think there's so much more that this world has to offer, and so many more ways that a child can benefit from learning what's in this world, that's why I am really looking forward to covering Oaty Kids World. I'll put on this goofy hat. I'll put it on one more time. It's actually very bulky and somewhat awkward for obvious reasons, but it's made. We basically made this off paper mache around a yoga ball, deflated the yoga ball, pulled it out, put in an oil-filled hard hat right underneath, painted that sucker blue, pop riveted it to the thing, and so now we have an OSHA approved globe on our head. And so if I can dress up like a fool and say silly things, but in some way affect a child or a young mind or even an older mind, and let them know that there's something out that this world has to offer for them that could help turn them into a productive, positive human being or something that they just like, I'll bend over backwards to do that. And I'm just glad we have a platform on which we can do it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Oaty Kids World, and it's going to be a YouTube channel, standalone by itself. I hope it does good. And then here we are at the end. Oaty Jokes and Riddles. We talked about this. This is going to be me and Carly and Haley. We have these yellow capes with our logo on it, and we'll be wearing jesters hats with bells on them while we sit here and tell jokes and riddles and brain teasers and tongue twisters, and we just sit here for a little while and have a little fun and entertain some people and hopefully do something for it. I'll grab one right quick. So this is one of what we will be wearing for you guys on Oaty Kids World. And hopefully you'll find our jokes as entertaining as we do. Some of them are old, man. There's some really old jokes. Let me tell you, when I started looking on the internet, there's a lot of good humor. Clean humor. And I hope that we're going to be able to put on a show for you guys that you guys are going to like. You're going to love Carly. You're going to love Haley. Yep, they're amazing people. So there'll be 3 generations sitting here. I'm the one with the dry sense of humor. Haley's pretty witty. All of my children are smarter than I am. I say that. I'm kind of thick. It takes in real life, I'm not the wittiest person. I'm not the quickest thinking person. I like to think I have a sense of humor. But Haley, she's my oldest granddaughter. Haley's funny. If Haley's an amazing human being, and Carly's our youngest daughter. She has this thing hanging in her room. It says, "Be your own kind of beautiful. Be your own kind of be yourself." And Carly is, which all of our kids are unique. Carly's definitely one of those be your own kind of beautiful. One of these days, I think Lizzie's already moved out. Elizabeth's, one of my other daughters, she's already moved out. Elizabeth and Carly have something kind of in common. All of our kids do to some degree, but Elizabeth and Carly were artists, or are artists. This is something that I didn't know. It slipped by. One thing I didn't know, Elizabeth can sing. I mean, Elizabeth really can sing. And even growing up in church and stuff, I heard them sing. But one day I caught Elizabeth in her room and she was singing. It's like, why don't you share that? That's a gift. You shouldn't be hiding that. And then come to find out, naive, always at work dad didn't know Elizabeth's an artist too. And Elizabeth draws, you see the artists who look at a skyline and then they draw the skyline from memory, like a computer prints out, like the same way that a needle would go up and down on an electroencephalograph in the hospital, or when you do the lie detector thing, whatever it is. I can't remember but when the needle goes up and down and it prints, or the heart monitor that's in the room when a patient's in the hospital and it's monitoring their heart and it's going across the chart. Elizabeth draws images like that. And once it was discovered, I was like, hey, everybody, being proud, wanting to be the dad thing. And Elizabeth started to do, people would make requests, and it's like, hey, could you draw my baby for me? Could you draw a family portrait? Or could you? And so she would, but then she got to where she didn't like it, and she just stopped. People would pay her money, and she would draw the image, but it wasn't fun for her anymore, and she stopped. So now I feel like the goose that laid the golden egg, the farmer got greedy, and he went in and he cut it open. I wasn't making it. I'm just saying that I was excited that she had that talent, but Elizabeth is a shy person. Elizabeth spent a lot of time in her room. Elizabeth, she had lots of friends, tons of friends. She's a very friendly person. But Elizabeth wasn't the overly outgoing type of person. And she's married to an amazing man. And they just gave me a beautiful grandson. He's 6 months-ish. But I think sometimes I probably wronged Elizabeth by letting the world know that she had these talents. Anyways, so I'm talking about Haley and Carly, right? Haley's oldest granddaughter, Carly's the youngest daughter. I just said all that to make it a point. All of my kids have something special about them, just like every other person on the planet. There is something about you that makes you, you. There's something about you that the world needs that makes you special. Every person on the planet that was put here, God has you have, there's a reason why you're here. Nobody's here by accident. If you go up and look at just the science of what it takes to get a child alert here, to get an egg fertilized, and all that a sperm has to go through in order to get there, and the odds that you were that one, combined with the fact that you did survive. Like in my family, there's 7 siblings. The first 3 did not even survive. It's just me, my brother, and my 2 sisters that survived to be as old as we are. Remember when I said earlier that half the people that I grew up with didn't even make it this far. I can think in my block, when I grew up, you say on the block, when I grew up in a small town in Lovington, New Mexico. I haven't been involved there for years and years and years, but the place where I grew up, on my street alone, across the street from me, we lived on the corner. Across the street from me, down the row of houses from me, in the first 4 houses, I don't even know if there's anybody alive besides me and my 4 siblings out of all the first 4 houses on our street, adult or child, that's even alive now. Across the street, I already know there's fatalities here of the kids that were there. Catty cornered. The house next to that, really good friend of mine, Glenn. Across the street from them, behind the house, a boy named Eric. Across the street from Eric, a boy named Gio. Going down the street this way, one of my really good friends, Tracy, Jose, Ishmael. These people have all moved on into the next world. They've moved on into eternity. Things go fast. Things move quickly. And I lost track of what I was talking about again. I'd have to go back and watch the video again, but there's just so many things going through my mind as I'm trying to prepare these channels and put all this stuff together for you guys. If I had a point that I was going to make right there, and I don't, sometimes it's overwhelming for me to look back and think of these people because some of them were very close to me. I don't know where it was at. So I apologize if I was going to make a point and I didn't make a point. I've been sitting here for a while. Let's see how long we've been recording. Oh, wow. 2.5 hours. I've been sitting here running my mouth for 2.5 hours. Anyways, I hope that the content that I'm trying to start cranking out, starting tomorrow, actually, I hope that you'll find some use for it. I hope that it's going to be good for you or somebody that you know. And hopefully you find it entertaining. Hopefully we won't be wasting our times, and hopefully you guys will like and subscribe and follow us here as well as on any other platforms. For now, we're starting out with TikTok and YouTube. So, well, I haven't met you guys. It will be nice to meet you. I do know some things. I don't know a whole lot about the channels and stuff. Dakota will be covering some of the comments. I'll be busy making content a lot, and besides, I have other things going on as well, businesses and things. I just have so many things going on in my life. I won't be doing a whole lot of commenting, but I will be very interested to see some of the things that you guys comment and things that y'all have to say. I know Dakota will be following a lot, and I do know that channels that we have for kids like this, Oaty Kids World, Oaty's Jokes and Riddles, Oaty Bible Stories, there will be no comments on any of those videos. Maybe we'll have an email if somebody wanted to say something. I don't know, but I would not promote any kind of contact between any adult and a strange adult and a child on the internet. Not gonna happen. Not gonna go there. I don't even think we're allowed to go there. But yeah, there will never be any kind of dialogue, chat, anything that you could possibly think of on my channels where children are going to be present, where they'll be talking to strangers. It's just not going to happen. So, anyways, I hope that you guys can find something in here that'll help y'all. I can't think of anything else, really. Blue finger? Was I playing with a pen? Went up with the blue finger. Something happened. Anyways, I look forward to serving you guys and trying to make these channels. And this is the first ever Oaty one-armed Twinkie type of video. And I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to serving you guys in the future. Maybe meeting some of y'all someday. You never know. Take care and have a good night. Peace out.